Welcome back to Magus in the Media. In these fairly strange, very weird days that we are all living within, it seems to be that which was hidden is no longer hidden anymore. And that which was once meant for a small collective is actually now meant for the entire world. So we truly got to ask ourselves, what is it that is going on? And is it good for us? Or is it one of those things that lends us down the strange rabbit hole of the weird, so you get a bunch of unenlightened individuals who are stumbling into things that they don't quite understand. And in this fine day, we get the wonderful, the brilliant Jin the Ninja of Threshold Saints in the Grey Lodge. Hello, Jin. How are you today?
What the fuck is up, Brandon? Thank you so much for that introduction. I don't feel brilliant today. I don't feel brilliant most of the time. I know I'm smart. Like, smart is different than brilliant. Brilliant means that you are always like immaculate, like a diamond. I definitely am not immaculate. I'm not precision oriented. I'm definitely much more. I've said this on the show with you, I think twice even before. Is like I'm much more attached to Hokmah. I'm like crazy wisdom floating in space. I need a little structure. I need that Binah. I know it's associated with the mother, but I'm saying it's the Binah daddy energy, and that's true. And so I try and bring things into reality in my own discursive way, but I think sometimes the structure actually adds that's actually how to do it, like properly, like magically, like you're laying out the foundation, because obviously Binah informs the sort of boundaries of Malkuth. And so I appreciate when I can come on and be discursive with someone who has that sort of opposing energy, but it's also complementary. So thank you so much, Brandon, for inviting me on these Monday night lives. It's been honestly incredibly fun. And also I do want to shout out like Threshold Saints. I just recorded with an amazing writer. His name's Scott Ladotti, and everybody should check him out and buy his books. And he has a new book of poetry. That's why I invited him on, because I love a poet. Poets also draw from Hokmah, in my opinion, from that like gray space of crazy wisdom.
For sure.
That's where the words come from, the graveyard of the words. So go check Scott out, and that episode will drop pretty soon. I've got a lot of archive materials right now, so I dropped one with Joshua from the Lodge Spaces, Joshua the Branch, as well as Seth, who's also in the Lodge, and we discussed Dark Souls and Elden Ring. That's called High Guardian Angel. So it was episode 89, so that just dropped today. And then Wednesday evening, there'll be a special episode with Paul Frederick from the Demonosophy podcast, as well as my co-host Solar Exile. So Solar was on that episode. Solar joins me the most frequently, but it's obviously Joshua has made many appearances. Matt has made many appearances. So, but Solar tends to join me for like for authors and for people who are more associated with the left-hand path things that he really gets meaning out of. So I really appreciate that, and I think it was a great episode, and hopefully people will like it as much as they did the first one. So everybody can check that out. And then the Grey Lodge, we will be having 2 April spaces. We just have had some scheduling conflicts, and then also sometimes it's okay to like have like a little bit of a slowdown, but so we'll at least have 1 space in April, if not 2. And we'll try for 2, but we'll see what happens. And so everybody can look out for that. It'll probably happen next week rather than this week, because I think Eros and Solar are going to sit down this week. So on Friday. So I'm looking forward to that, and I want to plug that as well. And of course, Vanessa just dropped in, and she's part of our lodge, and you are. And, we're just we're the inner temple. We're just like the inner temple on the internet. And so what really is interesting to me is the topic about all these boomers, Gen Xers, podcasters, influencers who are bringing the esoteric into the exoteric sort of discussion. And I know we're going to talk about, is that useful? Is it not useful?
Yes.
Is it like examples of it happening? And we are obviously sort of a part of it. But then I would also say, you and I are kind of not really a part of that particular thing, simply because we're both just too high IQ, good at Kabbalah, and it's not for the norm grids. So.
And that's exactly, no, I completely agree. All those things, everyone out there, go check out Threshold Saints, check out Jin the Ninja's work. He's got a plethora of work on X and Substack and Instagram and YouTube. So all the things all the time. And the reason is because of it seems to me, let's not get stuck in isnesses here, but it seems to me that as information and the dawning of the age of AI speeds up, there's some level of unveiling going on. And I know it's been going on for a very long time, so it's not special to this day and age, so to speak. But with that, it has allowed the term charlatanism and these individuals to be able to speak about things that maybe they've read a book about or watched a YouTube video about. And then they take these things for face value. So it's reading things that are esoteric and occult, but it's reading it from the exoteric perspective and not understanding it. And it's fascinating. And it's fascinating how much I get so irate by it. And so thank God I have a practice that keeps me centered. Otherwise, I would turn into a raving lunatic myself as I'm trying to battle trolls at all angles. You know what I mean?
I do know, as an ex-Twitter fighter, meaning that my Twitter baddie days, I've been trying to put it behind me, to be honest. It's not that I don't get mad or don't have, of course I have hilarious bars and quips. That is an endless supply on my side. But, you know, when you're talking about discussing theology and like nuances, and I'm just going to speak strictly for like Tantra and Buddhist Twitter, although I was naive at first and I really hoped, like, I know the more inner meaning, like, let's talk about it. Like, people are so off, and they're so off. Like, they really are so off. They're far away from like where a more esoteric understanding is. But everybody has to start somewhere. That is also what I realized. And maybe the easiest and best thing for me to do, well, I always say this. So like, worry about your own Malkuth first. What is within your sphere of influence, number one. But then number two, it's not really useful to be dogmatic. And I'm saying this as someone who was never trad, and I never said I was, and I've never, I really didn't. I would frame things in the most conservative, traditional way that I understood, because I thought that was the sort of frameworks of like how Twitter debated things, but it was my misperception, a klipa that I created, perhaps. And so, because I saw so many trad people, like so many people were like kind of doing a trad LARP life. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm already a magician. I'm not a magician. I'm a sorcerer, and I'm already a tantrika. They already think I'm like into sex magic. They already think I'm like into carnal ground activities, carnal ground rites, and like all of this, or associated with left hand path. And then like I will say I'm definitely. I do not run away from that label of like being at least informed by left hand path ideas. But the left hand path ideas I'm informed by are really traditional and from tantra.
Yeah.
And that's also true of the other ideas. It's just that we don't really have right hand path ideas. We just have dharmic ideas. So that informs your left hand path ideas, right? It's like the synthesis of the two things, the shamanic and the sorceress together. And that's what creates the middle pillar, or death, depending on how you want to look at that. So I'm just saying, what I'm all in toto, what I am saying is, it is not that useful to fight with people on theological terms on Twitter, because it is so rife with misunderstanding and also your own misperception, as well as, for them, people will get it if they want to, and people who don't give a shit about what you have to say are not going to give a shit, no matter how amazing a textual citations, or how amazing your own knowledge is, or how you could prove things even through Kabbalah. Like I always say to like the Grey Lodge people, like not just the co-host, but like to everybody in the chat. Like I say, like you need to be able to test wisdom science for yourself. Like wisdom science is a testable thing, especially Kabbalah. That's why I push Kabbalah, because it's very testable. Does it? Can you map it to the tree? Can you understand it through that hermeneutic? Because that hermeneutic is intended to be that kind of filtration system, to be the winnowing basket that separates the grain from the husk.
Oh yeah. No, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyways, I didn't mean to go on for that, but it's the reality that I don't know for me. So this is just my own placement, my own positionality on Twitter right now. Maybe I'll start fighting again. Who knows? But I just know for me, it's better that I don't. Like Twitter has changed even in the 3 years that I've been on it. Yes, I've managed to accumulate a decent account. I'm supposedly a Twitter micro celebrity. Once you pass 4,000, that's what they say. I didn't make up the rules. This is what they say. Like cool millennials on Twitter, cooler than me. They say once you pass 4,000, you're a micro celebrity.
That's good.
So. But I've never been a number account. Like I've never been like my tweets never. I mean, I have a couple that hit like in the thousands, but very rare for me. So I'm not really one to talk about like what works and what doesn't work, but what I've known for is my wit, my bars, poetry usually, and the mixture with Kino. So I treat it as a project, like a curation project, because I have an art history background. So
there you go.
I try. So for me, if I'm looking at Twitter in any kind of pedagogical framework, it strictly is through this kind of, I would say it's subtle. It's subtle. I'm going to post images and I might say something very deep. I don't know if it's deep, but I think it's relatively deep about the image or the deity. And if people want to take of that as a hermeneutic, or they want to reference it in a text for themselves, they should. Or if they look at the icon and understand it in a more deeper way, maybe it's clicking for them that day, that's what they should do. That's what my whole account is. So I am not like yes, I have a big Twitter account, but it's not that. I'm not like one of those people. That's like my posts are short. I keep it relatively concise, and fighting, while fun, is not super generative. And I'd rather be generative in the new Aeon.
No, I love that. And I think there is definitely something to be said about that. And I think it's really important. But I do also feel that we all have that sparkle Promethean fire within us all. And so there's something that when we wield the sword of reason, the sword of the intellect and of critical thinking, I think one of the reasons for sure that I created my channel and my brand and just this avatar of my existence within the aether spheres of the synthetic aether spheres. It's interesting because it's like, this is the public square that we all use to mix in the bag of the mind virus / ability to peer through and find truth within moments. And what I mean by that is that when you're scrolling or looking on the internet or trying to find that thing that helps you uncover new versions of discovery of yourself, that there's so much information that you have to be within it. And this is the public square, especially since COVID, right? Since COVID happened, people navigated into the digital realm. I think that's a designed factor of why COVID happened, as well as many other reasons, right? And because they want you here so that they can continue to create the Jeremy Bentham style utilitarian panopticon. That's kind of one of my theories.
No,
right?
you're totally right. That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
The problem is that they have people like me and like you, Brandon. I'm gonna convert you eventually, but they have little chaos gremlins, whatever you want, chaos goblins like me, who do actually. But I'm pretty traditional. Like we were talking about this pre-recording. Like I'm a trad dharmist, not in my worldview, but in my own practice. So I've been talking a lot about this idea called Lamdre, which is it's a specific kind of teaching in Buddhism where you kind of give all layers of meaning. So the 3 layers, inner, outer, secret, you express it through podcasting or through a teaching or through, it's not teaching.
Well,
I'm
what was that
not
called?
a teacher. It's called Lamdre.
Okay.
Lamdre with
Love
a
that.
little accent. Okay. So it is a non-dual teaching. I'm not a teacher, but I try and express things in a way that makes sense for people who are at different stages of their path. And so by doing that, they can then listen to if they ever listen to the episode or at a different stage in their path. I'm not saying re-listen to the episode, but I'm saying if they listen to it and they have like a higher degree of understanding, they'll actually take a different meaning away. And if they have a new beginner understanding, then they only need the beginner understanding. That's fine.
Yep. No, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a good idea. That goes back to then, because we don't want to fall into the trap of the nihilistic understanding of what technology is doing for us. It's like we can look at it from that black-pilled version of all digital things are bad. Palantir is going to continually.
We're not Gen Xers.
That's exactly it. We're not Gen Xers. And the thing is once I think you reach a certain level of understanding, not only within, but also with how the world works, we're basically, we're in the same realms of the chronological age spheres. And so like we've been through so much since birth. It's fucking crazy the amount of things that we've seen rise and fall, continual wars, the age of the internet, but I know for a fact you and I both remember when there was no internet, when there was only you, and it wasn't even just in our baby years, in the very formative early teen years, where finally you get this thing that taps you into the rest of the world. And so it's something that I've learned, especially through my time from my early 20s to where I'm at now, is that, when you first awaken and take the red pill, which is a continuous process, you don't just take one and you're done. And it's one of those things that, you want to spill the beans to all people, but realizing how many people can misinterpret the teachings because of how it's veiled in language. And so in the language being either certain Christian heretical terms to any of the Abrahamic terms, to it being veiled in a cookbook or whatever you want to veil these things into, that that you want to speak. So Eliphas Levi says, to will, to know, to dare, and to keep silent. And I wonder about that to the stream of the occulted YouTube and the mainstreaming of the esoteric. What happens to the silence that we're all trying to understand? And what does it mean to be within the public square, which I think is really important to then know when to use the wrathful Gebura and the ability of the warrior to cut down nonsense, especially when that nonsense is coming from the fire of the Kliplaf of the gremlins. You know what I mean? Like these people are fucking gremlins. It's crazy.
Look, I hate to use that word. It's way overutilized, but grifter. It's a great
grifters. Word. I always forget about that word. You're so right. Yes.
Yep. This is the thing, Brandon, is that once people have realized that there's like a kind of media market for their ideas, no matter how we feel that it is,
yeah,
they're going to continue with that narrative until it no longer is profitable.
Right. And not even monetarily. It's like a profitable of your lower desire.
Social. I just talked about this with Scott, and I don't want to say the exact bar, but because it was really good. But I was like, we've traded. I'm gonna say it. We've traded capitalism for social capitalism, and I think that's 100% true. And we like the influencer is the new celeb, right?
Yes.
And this is a big part of like my whole show is like I say. I'm nothing. Like I'm not nothing. I don't like that. I'm not, obviously I like Naropa. We don't ever use negation, especially on ourselves.
Yes.
We exist to a degree, but not maybe to the degree that we believe ourselves, but we also don't not exist. So I don't want to say I'm nothing, but I will say like, I don't think of myself as like, yeah, I do think I'm a good Kabbalist. Like no shit, like no question. No, like I am.
Oh, yeah.
And I also think I'm very, I think I understand to a deep level, like my Tantric Buddhism. I really do. I've had too many incredible experiences to like say and to like, I don't want to play humble, but my whole thing is not to play Tiferatic, egoic either.
Yeah.
And I also think that is a big problem is that you do have people that do know a lot of shit and have been around in well, I guess we shit on the Golden Dawn a lot on the last episode, so maybe I'll turn my ire to the OTO or to the
Yeah,
Typhonian
yeah.
Order. But actually, as you know, Brandon, I kind of like those people because I kind of think in their Gnosticism, or their neo-Gnosticism, I actually think they're getting something right. They're at least offering a framework that does make sense, an Aeonic framework, much like how I discuss my own ideas of like the Aeon. And so at least that is the one boon of the OTO and the Typhonian Order, is that they,
Right.
and all the like little Gnostic subgroups around them, is they're providing people with these kind of alternative, they're not quite Christianities and they're not quite paganism. It's kind of something in between. And so I actually feel like it reconciles a lot of the paradoxes that are found in Christian Kabbalah. And I've always said, like my entire podcasting career, like I would not be a good Kabbalist without Pico. Like it's a foundational
for sure.
understanding for me, right? And like if you're looking at Aeon of the Sun stuff, you must understand Pico. You have to. So I'm not shitting on Christianity, but I do see a lot of flaws like major flaws in institutional Christianity. I've said this before. I'm very ortho friendly in one way, is that orthodoxy preserves a lot of the Kabbalah, the best, but Catholicism has it to a degree, the Rosicrucianism and all that, and the Loyola's, spiritual exercises, those were like made for magic, basically, or made for preparation for doing magic. And so it exists, but like even in the outer, we were talking about this pre-recording, like the outer temple congregation people, like they're not learning anything. They're not even taking the deeper human meanings away from the kind of lessons. Like they're not taking gospel lessons. It's like nothing. They're not learning morality. They're not learning magic. They're not learning psychic self-defense. They're not learning Kabbalah, which encompasses all of those things. They're not learning like the mythopoetic framework to understand astrology. They're very weak in all areas. So I'm not sure. For me, it just wouldn't serve any purpose for me to like be like, oh, I'm going to return to Roman Catholicism, or I'm going to convert to Greek Orthodoxy, because I'm just like already.
Well,
but I'm not going to shit on
Aeon,
it
though. It's old Aeon stuff, which is like everything that you and myself, even before I knew you, is like this framework of how you move through the cyclical nature of revolutionary time through a long period. And just so people understand even what the term Aeon means, you can think of it like what I just said, is that there are different time periods, but it's not a time period. Aeons are conscious intelligences that are larger than anything we can even fathom. What do you think about that?
No, I think that the Aeons arise in our own mind, number one. I've said this for 3 years. Absolutely. That is what an Aeon is. Like the reason that we both agree on that premise is because we're fundamentally speaking of the same thing. We might have a different view of it. Like we might articulate it in different ways. We might have a like slightly different way that we understand how it works, but we're fundamentally referring to the same thing. So first, I'm not saying the Aeons aren't real. I do make jokes, and like, the Aeon is not the, as you mentioned, it's not the Sky Daddy, but and it isn't, because it's the Aeon of the daughter and the son. So it's definitely not the Sky Daddy this time, but sometimes it is. And so we have to reconcile all of those kinds of meanings of the Aeon. So they're not just archetypes either. I want to say that.
No, they're
sometimes
not.
they're not, but they are things that we can embody.
Yes.
They're principles, ideas, like Neoplatonic, Platonic, but they actually kind of go beyond that, and they touch on something like that's even metaphysically deeper, ontological.
Yes.
So it becomes like such an important idea I really think that if you're going to use like a Hellenic kind of framework, I think that I would say I'm a Gnostic myself. Like maybe not like
for sure.
Coming down
to the Gnostic, like Gnosis.
Right.
Because we seek after Gnosis.
Right. It's all a noetic process, right?
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. I'm a Gnostic, but I'm just happen to like practice my flavor of Buddhism. So Buddhism is quite Gnostic.
Very, very. It's direct experience. It's direct experience.
Well, that's the whole thing. And then also, like, the Vedic gods are archons, the planets are archons, even the stars are archons at times.
Yes,
Even the worldly gods, the yakshas, all the people of, like, all the denizens of the carnal ground, those can all be archons. You are an archon. Just as we
Yes,
can
exactly.
embody aeons. That's why with the Aeonic framework, what is so cool and interesting, and what I think feel especially drawn to, and I think I'm not going to speak for you, Brandon, but I think this is true for you, is that this idea of, like, being high agency. Even if you can't be high agency necessarily in your own life, you can be high agency in your own consciousness. So you actually get to choose of your own free will to embody, or at least try to pathwork, the Aeonic keywords. So for me, that is what distinguishes us from an archon, is because if we choose to do that for the Aeons, then we move forward in our own alchemical game.
I like that. And especially because archons are definitely locked within their own collective understanding of what the energy that's moving through them, like a life force, but is different towards us because of our spirit, soul, our embodied agency has the ability within the confines of its own astrological diagram that we can move in and out using the archetypes, which are, again, aren't archons, but these massive forces of energy that move through us as humans, because those things themselves, maybe this is kind of like, maybe I'm being a little humanistic when I say this, but what would those things, like, every human isn't on this planet anymore and there's no beings, like, what is going on? Nothing. A bunch of it's not that the solar system is not doing its thing, but it's that these life forces and energies move through the lowest realm of the hierarchy of being, the very Marsilio Ficino, and the three books of what is it? Three books of, what is
Occult philosophy.
Yeah, thank you. Agrippa and his work.
Sorry, I had a pen in my mouth.
No, that's good. And so it's all things move through the person, and so you got to think of, like, that same thing with how the archons move through us. It's like how easily the term possession can be taken as, obviously it's not a positive thing, but the idea becomes Abrahamic, where if you could understand what it means to be possessed, not just by whatever your term of demon is, or you can make it an idea or an egregore, which is then why I think you and I both have problems with, say, what we're talking about, right? The occulted YouTube and the mainstreaming of esotericism, why there are all these individuals out there speaking in a way where they have not worked on their own individualistic measuring apparatus, which is the human nervous system. And it's that human nervous system that we then have the ability to, like software and hardware, shouting out to the 8 circuits of consciousness, Timothy Leary, Robert Anton Wilson, John C. Lilly, is like not understanding that we have the ability to move in and out of software if you have the ability to know how to do so. And if you don't, you're being possessed to push a narrative without your knowledge. And I'm going to shout out people out there who are actually, like, in some ways doing good, other ways doing harm, because we're just humans. But you have Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and then you get the other side of things. You get fucking even Donald Trump himself, the fucking Trumpian. He's like taken himself as the ultimate demagogue and egregore, right? He is like exuding this fucking gregarious energy, and now we're seeing it all over the fucking internet, where he is now put in images of him being a healer, like a very Christ type thing, or they're fucking doing Christian prayers and taking photos of it. It's crazy.
Stuck at Tiferet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly, coming through them. And so why this is so important to know is that I think it goes to Terence McKenna's idea of novelty theory, right? And time wave 2012, even though, here we are now. But I think it's fascinating to think how fast everything is speeding up in this accelerated universe that we're living in.
Well, as I mentioned on this show, the first time I think I appeared, there's my, I guess my wife. I don't know how else to describe it, but your that's waifu. Fine.
Yeah, in the
my
house.
Waifu, my dakini, I guess. I don't know. It's cool. Okay, so A time wave. I think we're in time wave 2020. But I want to say this before I say that.
Yeah.
Is Tracy Toyman described this augmented reality game coming out of Disney in 2013. It talks about the coronavirus. It talks about Agenda 2030. It has all these things, and it's an ARG. So people got assigned all over the country different roles to play, different insight roles. They might have to change their entire life around. They might have to move somewhere with a totally new name. And so people actually did this. People actually did this.
Yeah.
And some of the enemies in the, or quote unquote enemies, are the quote unquote NPCs, which are just normie people who don't know that the game is actually being played. So I would say that we are like nested, like Russian nesting dolls, like the perfect Kabbalistic metaphor. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's so great. Thanks. Thanks SMS 717. I so appreciate you.
Right. Stay on track, Jen.
Okay. I just want to be clear. Like, I am fine if someone like is my fan, and like obviously I do joke about the Skywives a lot, but I really do have a Skywife. So just make sure, like, if you like, be careful with that, because the Skywives do get jelly. So, and they're very powerful beings.
Very powerful.
Right. So, okay, but we'll keep moving forward. So there's basically this idea that this ARG still continued onwards, and I think that that's probably accurate. And it is crazy to think that people are playing ARGs like all the time, and maybe reality itself is an ARG. I'm not a sim theory person. I do think, though, technically I'm not, but I understand that that is a one way to describe meta reality and like how we move through it. And reality, it is a hermeneutic, and so we have to understand the various gates that we pass through of consciousness, gates of consciousness that we pass through. And as a greater civilization, we've passed through several gates that were not necessarily organic, but that were sort of foisted upon us through the great disruptions of the last 8 years. It wasn't just COVID. There were other ones as well. And of course, we all have our personal ones. So our personal ones can also serve as those same sort of pathways and doorways that we have to walk through to gain experiential knowledge. So what I'm trying to say is that I do think that you have to kind of think, and you don't have to believe we are in an ARG, but you have to think in terms of game theory, and you have to understand that other people are using game theory to maneuver reality.
Boom. Nice. Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's so important, especially because if you take things down to how patterns number theory inserted themselves into game theory, and how when you take somebody's data and all of it, you gotta, like, we all out there need to make sure we understand that with that, you don't need to take, I think Neuralink is one of those things where people are like, the only way I'll ever become a cyborg is if I do Neuralink, and I would never do Neuralink. And then I'm all like, okay, interesting. I like where your head's at. I feel like you want to make sure that you don't step over a line. But do you travel with your cell phone in your pocket? Like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, do you turn the location services off, or do you leave it on at all times? They're like, on at all times. And I was like, okay, well, then that means you're being tracked at all times, and it's taking all the data everywhere. And just know, even if you turn your location services off, it's actually not actually off. It's just telling you it's off, and it doesn't collect some data probably. But did you know that your phone takes a picture of you every 40 seconds, if not more, and sends it back to Google? And did you know that even if it's off, it's not actually off? And so these are really interesting concepts that we've seen in science fiction for a very long time, right? Minority Report being one of them, not just a Tom Cruise movie. Philip K. Dick created this short novella, and it is exactly one of the things that we're going through in this day and age, right?
Find yourself a really good mainland China jailbreaker for your phone, and get him to cut the face, the facial recognition. There's a cord. It's just a simple cord. I mean, I mean, I may or may not have had this done. I'm just saying, but you can actually get them to cut it. It's very simple. It doesn't ruin anything. It just means you can't use facial Well, this is for Apple though. obviously. But yeah,
I'm an apple.
you can do that. So I've obviously
Fascinating.
never done that myself, like
Of
ever.
course not. You are a
And
good citizen.
correct. And
Yeah.
so there you go. So I'm just saying that I know it's not perfect though. And like even the location services, like I never turn mine on, but I do take pictures from places. I obviously post them in our little friend circle, and almost never post them on like online really, but people who like are in my circle, they know pretty much, like they could easily figure out where I was kind of, or at least in the general vicinity.
Oh, yeah.
So you know, it's not perfect, but you do your best, and you try and navigate. Like parasocial friendships are really hard, but you kind of, you know, it's like what are the choices, Brandon? Like, is it to be like I could just be a hermit? Like that's a choice I could make. I mean, I had no social media pre 2020, like none.
Yeah, I didn't either. Actually, no, I didn't either because I stayed away from it the whole time. No, I completely agree. Interesting enough. Yeah.
And so they definitely pushed us online. They definitely pushed us to form sort of like the Nexions on the interweb, on the Aetherwave. I know that people disagree with that idea that you can like form sort of like virtual friend groups, and maybe you can. I don't know. But like at least that if we're gonna be here, at least we can try. And
yes, I agree. Yep.
and I also think you were saying this about the occult podcasters. Well, we're calling them quote unquote air quotes occult podcasters.
Yes.
Thank you, Brandon. Those were air quotes if anyone's listening and can't see. But
yeah, exactly.
you know, I think it comes down to like personal practice. I'm not saying this from a high horse or anything. There are times when I started podcasting, my spiritual practices, my obviously Tantra, Buddhism, was like I would give it myself like an A minus. It was like 2 to 3 hours a day, sometimes twice a day, maybe not as long, like maybe like 2 hours in the morning and then like an hour and a half at night. But it was like consistent, it was strong, it was it kept me together, and it kept everything together. But I also had no friends online. So for the first year and a half, right? So I just continued to do that, continue to get invited on other shows, just continue to work. I spoke to barely anyone. I had no close friends online at all. I would kind of come and go through different groups because that's kind of the nature of Twitter. And then, you know, but then there was a point where I got really busy and I stopped doing the practices. So why am I saying this? Because you cannot do that if you are doing a internet project,
right?
Because it is the ghost world. Like, let's just cut the bullshit. We live in this is the Ketu. People always love this, so I'll say it like in a way that I know is somewhat popular or makes me sound cool. So we live in the Ketu, the smoky tail of the dragon. That's what software is. It's the subtle body, the spiritual body. Okay, part of that exists in the phone. He obviously eclipses both the sun and the moon. So you could say we are in the sublunary realm. That is where the internet really exists. And underneath Yesod, on the dark side of the moon, where the ghosts live, right? That's like where the ghost worlds are. Everybody's in their like subconscious desires, subconscious, affectations. The reality to them is it's very malleable from down here. It's very psychic. Obviously, this is a psychic Aeon. I have talked about how this will be a tantric Aeon, how it'll be a magic Aeon, but it's actually, that's not really accurate. It's really going to be a psychic Aeon. So it can be very, be very intoxicating to spend a lot of time on socials, because obviously a lot of us, I'm not speaking for anyone but myself, but I do recognize this on Twitter often, is that people are extremely isolated. People are extremely lonely. And I'm saying this about myself at times. So especially for connection and kinship with people who are interested in deeper metaphysics, deeper magical ideas. And so my greater point is the occult podcasters often have a very superficial knowledge of these things, often are not practical, Like they're not practicing anything. So even if they are speculative, like I'm a very speculative magician in nature, like that's kind of what my show
Yeah, mine
is
too. Me
that
too.
I know. So but you still have to have a practice. You have to have something you have to materially refer back to.
Yes.
So like if people ask you, like people, especially when I first started podcasting, I used to get like tons of emails and like people would be like, oh, I want to learn Asura Tantra. Well, I don't even like know what that is, but or like they want to do this thing or this thing, and they're like, how did you learn so much? And I would be honest, I'd be like, I just practiced for like 2 decades. I just did Buddhism for a long time, but I had moments, I had periods, years even, where I would go off and on and I would do something else. That didn't serve me. None of that served me. What serves me is doing Tantra and doing Tantric Buddhism. So that's what I stick to. So that's my material and primordial ground. So through that, I feel like I'm a much better podcaster when my practice is super tight, when I spend a lot of time in it, and when I spend time away from the phone. That does not mean I do not care about like Twitter, or I really don't care about Twitter, but what I do care about is the friendships that I have forged. Now, I don't all know the longevity or the nature of them all the time, but what I can say is that if I'm online and I feel like those things are meaningful, then I want to give them my attention and my energy. So it's all about moderation. I also like I have tons of things to do in my own life, like my own personal life. Winter, as you know, Brandon, because you live in that kind of place too, is like winter is very isolating, very brutal, very like it keeps you in the house a lot. And that can be also dangerous because then you come to see the internet as an escape, which it is. It's the sublunary. So we are escaping to the ghost worlds. So in nowhere other realm do you need as much protection as you need. So that's another reason to do the practice. So again, coming back to the idea of these guys, a lot of them go off into the wilderness because they don't have a kind of ground that they return to. So for me, I think that you just have to have a practice. Remember that most people, 90% of influencers at least, are full of shit. Even if they have knowledge, about things. And also be discerning, like the fire of Gevra, like Brandon was talking about, like that's an Aeonic concept, right? The daughter comes through Gevra onto path 22. The son, who is us, the magician, the Upasaka, he must come through Hesed. That is the difference. It's a switched Aeon. So that's going to mean different things to different people. I'm not telling anyone what it means and what it doesn't.
No, of course not.
But what I'm saying is that is how I understand the Kabbalah. So that means 2 things. The fundamental dialectical relationship is between Gevura and Gedula, or Gevura and Hesed, or Hesed and Deen. So and then you must have both.
It's the Kabbalistic cross, which is then why it's part of the ceremonial magician's tool bag. No matter how you do said cross on the body, that's what you're trying to do on this earth, and that is stand within the center of Tippereth, your highest version of the actual you, who's still within the Malkuthian realm, because that's how the energy moves down from Kether through Doth into Tippereth itself. Is that, and then as we speak of, we got to watch out for the inverted energy ego shell that the solar can do to us. And so it's a fascinating thing that we come back to that Chesed and Gabura ideal, is that those are the balancing out of this dualistic, contradictory nature of our pillar of mercy and severity in the realm of Malkuth, in the kingdom itself. And that phrase, I think this whole concept that we just laid out there is so far past most people that are within the realms of not just the occult, new agey, guru, influencer, philosopher, or any of these things. And it's not that him and I are even speaking like we know anything. The idea is these things are laid out in the work itself. Even if you're not a Kabbalist, you can understand these things. And what is it in Ghost Dog? I think I brought this up both streams. In Ghost Dog, He walks by the Rizza, who's in an army jacket, and they look at each other. And he's talking about how you will know them by their fruits and the look in their eye. That is a fellow Ronin on this journey. Ronin being the lone samurai on his path. And the idea of taking it from the ghost dog to balancing out these two pillars and then taking it to them, what I also like to always talk about is the Invisibles by Grant Morrison, is that we are forming our own, not only just digital, astral, physical, invisible cells, where I think the digital manifestation of that is the Grey Lodge being one of them. And, with Magus in the media, I'm trying to bring on and tap into these communities that normally I wouldn't be able to just talk to, right? I mean, I can't just go over to the islands and go find Scarlet Imprint and walk into Scarlet Imprint and chat with them. I could. It's fucking hard, because it's a long ways away and a lot of money. And then they'd think I'm some fucking crazy person. So what do? We put out work online, the new collage, the new chapbook of the poets, the new way of presenting yourself, and try to be authentic as possible and realize that there are probably more charlatans out there in the world than there are true adepts and seekers, because it goes back to what the actual understanding of esotericism is. Esoteric is it's a select few, and what it takes is practice, having a principled foundation like Jin was just talking about, laying down the principles and have an actual system, no matter what it is, even if it's the chaos magic. Because the more and more I talk to you, Jin, and the more and more I'm understanding my own practice, I know why I hate certain levels of chaos magic.
100%.
Right, but there's still something to it, where it's the syncretized world that we're living in. That is the actual understanding of what I think like authentic chaos magic is like the syncretization of knowledge and practice through time.
Correct. So where chaos magic is really strong is where also, like we were talking about, like OTO, Typhonian order, and theosophy, because all those three things go very much hand in hand. Like they're inseparable, really.
Inseparable,
but like chaos magic is kind of like the postmodern version of that, right? Like it's saying, okay, fuck all this like old troon shit, as they call it on Twitter, old man shit, I should say, and like burn the books, like I joked last time.
Yes.
So, exactly. But they're also like, let's look at things and see if they're useful and see if we can fit them into the ritual grammar of like the ritual sort of like language, which they use a lot of like fake math. It's like kind of calculus, like integers, and they have different meanings. And so you kind of have to try and plug in the values of these ideas into these chaos magic equations. And then hopefully you can produce some interesting sigils or whatever. So the strength of chaos magic is it's able to be very flexible. And so this is a really topic idea, is that you have to be very flexible in your own mind with systems. So why I like chaos magic, aside from being a chaos magic kid, you could say, is because it does teach you actually a much deeper esoteric lesson, even if you're very flippant about the chaos magic as like a framework. Now, chaos magic actually does have a very interesting lineage, legacy, history, and canon of books. But I have found, this is not, I'm not shading anyone, but a lot of contemporary chaos magic writers writing for Llewellyn or Intertraditions, and like, be very clear, I'm speaking totally for myself. Please, all Intertraditions writers, if Brandon asks you on, or if I ask you on, please come on Threshold Saints or Magus in the Media. Of course, I'm not slagging you guys. I'm simply saying that there are some people who clearly do not have the bona fides to be necessarily writing, discoursing, and teaching the ideas, but even in their corporatism, correct. But even in their imperfect vehicle, seeds may arise that can be useful. But again, this requires our personal, individual discernment, and this is a big Aeonic concept. One of the conceptual keywords for the Aeon, this is from the Aeon of Mott workings in the 80s and the 90s, is the keyword for ipsos, which means the mass, which refers to Hode. But it actually is taught, like, this is not what the Aeon of Mott workings in that time under Nema with the Typhonian order, this is not exactly what she meant. but I understand it as the individuated man who exists within the mass. So we are fully individuated, but we are not anti-cosmic in the sense that we actually can coexist together to the best of our ability. This might be imperfect. Of course it is, because we are imperfect.
Yes.
We are constantly in the process of becoming. And so this also goes along with like what people are learning. Now, I'm an intermediate kind of thinker, I would say, in terms of Kabbalah and definitely in terms of Tantra. I understand it is jumping into the deep end. You probably don't know what the fuck I mean, not you, Brandon, but most people are probably don't know what the fuck I even am talking about most of the time. I get it. It's been my whole life. People will say that, have said that to me. We don't know what you mean. You're so weird. That's fine. I am weird. You're totally right. I've been a sorcerer my entire life. Of course, that's going to produce a weird person. It is what it is, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually learning to accept like there's it's not necessarily that I believe in a fixed self, but I think that there are elements to yourself that can be misperceived and misunderstood, and it's okay, because if as long as you kind of recognize what the underneath is, there's no reason to be ashamed of it or like that embarrassed about it. I try not to be, but like obviously I am also like I have lots of insecurities. I talked about my accent last time. And so, you know what? Good on some people for getting up there and doing content, but there's also different tiers, right?
Yes.
Like there is like, you know, Dr. Angela Puka, she is really cool and fun, and she does like it's very performative, and I'm not using it as a pejorative. I'm saying she does it like very fun, like for the Zoomers, like exactly what they would like. That's perfect for that crowd.
It is.
So it all depends on your demographic. Like, what do you want your media market to be?
Yeah.
Like Peter Gray and his partner.
Yeah, Alkisti.
So their books are very intermediate.
Yeah.
So you're not going to go listen to a show with them and be like, oh, and never having read any of his Luciferian books and be like, and then even know what he's referring to. You're going to think he's talking about like the devil worship, right?
That's
or whatever
exactly
that people think.
Yes. Yeah, intermediate to even high level with his understanding of John Milton's Paradise Lost and how it refers to Lucifer. It's fucking crazy. And he told me, and you can hear, I don't know actually if I talked about it on the show, but he's had people at his conferences, little witches, little witch talkers, little children, get up in the middle of his like complete beautiful romantic period mythopoetic take on Lucifer, and then walk out of these things because he basically says, didn't you realize that the Bible is actually like the witch's Bible, and what you're doing isn't? Don't you realize that like you are worshiping and they were like, oh no, this is challenging my worldview, I'm gonna walk out of here, when it's like, no, that guy is brilliant and you are all morons. And so that's, anyway, go on. I just wanted to.
No, I totally agree. And I also think like my supposed sky wife SMS 717, it's very weird that they use that number, because that's an important number for me, but this is a great suggestion. People to collage their own Jungian red book. It's interesting. It is a great suggestion, but I want to also plug that very early in the days of the Grey Lodge, we did actually live read portions of the Red Book and then discuss it from a Kabbalistic perspective. I wasn't as good a Kabbalist as I am now. I've grown a lot in the 3 years. There's absolutely no question about that. There's absolutely no question about it in terms of like the other 3 co-hosts, and obviously Eros joined us now, but like I just want to shout out like Solar. He pushed me to it's not really about Kabbalah, but he really pushed me into like refining my ideas. So shout out to him for that.
Nice.
But it wasn't just shout out to him for sure. But then also we have a very adversarial, sometimes often antagonistic relationship, but honestly, I have learned a lot. So there's obviously that's the benefit of that, right? Is that you have to test your ideas in the fire, even though it makes me like sometimes very uncomfortable to like quarrel or whatever. So, but 717. I see that. Do you know that's the name of my theme song, SMS? I just want to, it's just, that's why it's
Shut
freaking me out,
up. No,
Brandon.
it's not. No,
Because
it's
that is
not.
the name of my
That
theme
is
song for Threshold Saints. So yeah, it is.
Shut up. That's good.
That's why I'm like, it's like freaking me out because I was like, because
Uh,
nobody knows, because that's like a secret, like that's like my top, that's top secret, right?
yeah, nice.
Like what Jin's intro and outro music is, like where he gets it and like
That's
what
the
kind of,
funniest
what's
shit
what's
ever.
the nature
That's
of
what
it.
I'm saying. So then it goes back to this whole idea of the occulted YouTube. That's another aspect of what's going on, is that with the novelty theory of Terence McKenna and the time wave zero, time wave 2012, which is now time wave 2020, which is also time wave 2030 and 2026, and the time waves right now, is that as the information increases, synchronicity is increasing due to the malleable nature, not of just the universe, but of our minds as we all become initiated into this new level of magician. Some are just really low level magicians, but it goes to the idea that all art is magic. It's just not all magic is good magic, and not like more morally good, but just like there's a connection with reality. And so I think the more people that are tapping into the esoteric and the occulted nature of our own universe, is that I think there's this merging of the I think the Enlightenment and modernity have kind of been shown for what it is. That's how, you know what I mean? Because as we move forward into the coming of AGI and AI, that's how you reach a singularity. And I think my theory is that we already did, and that the one of my hypotheses of my science fiction realm is that we were slowed down because of we reached a level of understanding that our bodies and mind couldn't handle. And so the powers that be have actually locked us within this prison realm type black iron prison to make it so they can get a grip on reality a little sooner. Anyway, that's my
Well, it's all
fiction
about
rant.
time scales, right? That's how the Aeons turn. That's how the Dharma chakra, the time wheel turns, cosmic, ontological, and also at Yesod. So like the way that we understand time, which we digitized, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's a quote unquote they, or
Right.
if it
I think
is.
it's us. I think it's us.
Yes. That's
Yes,
what
it's
I know
our
you do.
conscious.
I know you
Yes,
do. It's
yes.
our consciousness.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do think we are in control of the wheel turning. And I do think that they quote unquote do, I think we get technologies based on how they perceive or understand the wheel turning to be. You know, we could all throw out our phones tomorrow.
Yes.
Nobody's going to do it, unfortunately.
No.
Or fortunately. So
Or fortunately, yeah,
with,
it's a tough one.
well, the thing is like, how do you exist in 2026 without it? Like, how do you
You can't. No,
you can't, at least
you can't.
even just socially.
Yeah. Let
Like, I
alone
live
for
in an
work
area.
and job. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I live in a very boomer area. I chose to live here. That's totally my choice. I agree. But I live in an extremely boomer area, and it's just like the reality is like also, if you're not from here, you don't really, there's no foothold for you. Like, that's kind of how it's treated. You can be friendly with people, you can even be friends with people, but you're not really in, and you're never going to be fully in. So it's kind of like being an expat in like a foreign country. It is a little bit like that. So I think that, like, whether I rely on it for parasocial things, or people rely on it for banking, or people rely on it for like running their like on e-commerce or whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's impossible. It's impossible to sort of exist without it or outside of it. So then my idea is like, this is where chaos magic comes in handy. It's like, okay, we're going to take something pre-existing, something that's kind of shit, and we're going to like learn to hotwire this thing. Like, we're going to hotwire it and turn it into our personal aether wave device that we, to a degree, can then control. And then obviously through our work, like, as you said, our aether wave internet archive work, we can sort of provide I don't want to say counter narrative because that's too dialectical, but
It
you're
is.
allowing wisdom to be free in space, the best way that you can articulate it, the best way that you can speak it, and then hoping people will actually take like their own consciousness and be like, yeah, I am a sovereign person. And I actually do get to control what I scroll, what I believe, what I
Yes.
say, what I think, and what I do. And I think that that is like that for right now, that's like I'm just taking one day at a time for me. Like
I
the
agree.
internet
Me too.
cycle is insane. I don't pay, as you know, Brandon, I very much don't pay attention to it. I
Yeah.
definitely am totally checked out of foreign policy. I'm totally checked out of politics. I don't believe a lot of it is quote unquote real.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. That's my personal opinion. People are absolutely 100%, 110% free to believe whatever they want. But just for me, I think a lot of it is fake. I think that's how they contain people is in these fake narratives, fake silos.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know about this. We all listen, like, come on, everyone, even the leftoids, they, they listen to conspiracy podcasts too in 2020,
For
whether they chose
sure.
to accept it or not.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, it's true. And it's almost easier, which I completely understand if you don't want to accept that the daddy government has your best interest at heart, because we're raised to think that the state and the government is there to help us, to not only help us with like this mythical egregoric economy idea, or that it connects to this Federal Reserve thing, which isn't really as real as you want to make it seem, especially when money is meaningless because of your like trillions upon trillions of dollars in debt, and yet they want to take small amounts of your taxes. And so it's such a fascinating thing. And then as we move through the world, what have we known about without the occulted YouTube? Would we have known about such things like the Epstein Islands, or what is going on with different takes about the World Trade Centers back in 9/11? Like when people like Jason Burmez, shout out to him, somebody get him on my fucking podcast, when he was helping push out Inside Job DVDs in Seattle and all the major cities. You know what I mean? And so it's like, as we move through things, now you have these documentaries, but the waters are so muddied that it goes back to the same thing I've been talking about, that Jin, you talk about all the time on your stuff, and that I think a lot of really wise people speak on, is that it's so important to practice. It's so important to get your principles in order and your base level as a foundation of an ethical moral structure. Because to fall into a category of moral relativism, as well as to just be so inclusive that nothing matters and everybody should be just one, is like you're missing the point of the embodied experience. And you can't know that until you heal your past, and you heal it through going through the hard stuff. And that is then going out and looking at things that you don't agree with, trying to understand them, and trying to understand not only those things, but then to lay them across in some philosophical dialectic with others. And then not only can you take a machete to your own mind, which you should through these things in writing, but then you can realize what actually matters to you and why you think the way you do. Because without those things, you are just a NPC. You are but a smith in the matrix who at any moment can turn into anyone that's not unplugged. And then you got to continue honing the practice in your gung fu, your mastery of self through time, because even Cypher, even a character who was unplugged, was still working for the Matrix. And it's crazy to think that that dumb fuck thought somehow the robots were going to put him back in a pod. It's like my moments for trusting the system, right? No matter what it is, the government, the AI, the robots, the system, even that I'm like running on a day-to-day level, my own systems I know are flawed. So it's like, well, how am I going to go back into a pod and be filled back up? And who's shoving that thing down my throat? And why would they even want to do that? If you've seen any levels of movies, you realize that the rat always gets shot when he thinks he's going to get the millions, billions, It's crazy.
Well, the sublunary realm is the realm of delusion, right?
Right. Yes, exactly.
So that's the big problem with existing in the sublunary realm only.
Yeah.
is that we have no frame of reference for greater reality. Then that's even where the internet, the Twitter specific saying for touch grass. But like, if your reference for touch grass is Twitter, even that can
Yeah,
be
yeah.
its own like
It's like, what
delusory
the
kind of
fuck?
thing. And the people that
Yeah.
say it are the least grass touchers among us.
Uh-huh. I know. That's crazy.
So
That's crazy to think. Yeah, and touching grass has become such an artificial thing anyway, let alone the idea that you're not even touching the grass if you have shoes on and your own bioelectric field isn't syncing up with the earth, which people are like, oh, that sounds crazy. Well, if you're here, you shouldn't think so because of your electromagnetic frequency is really important. That is one outward manifestation of your astral body and your auric field, and it keeps the whole system together. And so you like, it's as easy as saying, when you go into a fucking hospital, it feels terrible. Why wouldn't you think then that if you just put your feet on the grass that you wouldn't be able to realign something, and why you feel better when you're camping, even though, it's like, I don't know. It's just such a fascinating. That's why Jean Baudrillard's work, I think, is so mind blowing. The post structuralist, the simulacra, simulation in his writing, and why it was so influential on the Matrix, is because we've built up a simulation, a map that is over the territory, and then we've forgotten it's a map, and we now call it the territory. And then we keep doing those types of things all the way down to the food we eat, the music we listen to, the conversations we have. Why I think it's so fascinating and how easy it is to move mental mind viruses through from person to person. And then you can blanket, like the first thing, the image that comes to mind, Jin, and I want you to talk about this as well, is the idea of what the image of Baphomet is and how it's been LARPed into the Church of Satan, LARPed into Christian hate
really
groups, and until people don't even know where that comes from. It's been LARPed now by, for years by like Slayer and heavy metal. And it's the least LARPy thing due to the fact that it is the motif Alphas Levi, a fucking bishop, created, and occult is created to signify the partial completion of the great work and all the symbolic motifs of alchemy and magic, which is a divine science in and of itself. It's crazy.
okay, so Baphomet, obviously, contemporaneously, we're not going to do speculative Cathar origins tonight. We'll stick to textual, provable,
Yes.
17th, 18th century origins, Alphias Levi.
Yeah.
He discussed this character. Of course, there are historical precedents. I'm not discounting that at all. But like with everything after the 17th century Reformations and 18th century, the Enlightenment era, as Brandon calls it, which is the correct and more Western term, yes. It's very nebulous. History is a very nebulous thing. It really is. There are things we do not know, like fundamentally do not know, that are described as the things that we know for a fact, but it's not really accurate. This all we was Kangs. That does not mean things aren't real, right?
No,
I'm not saying discard everything. I'm simply saying, like, what can we know as real? So that's why I'm using this much later text. I understand that even Tracy Twyman, I mean, I did do the first series on the metaphysics of her work. I'm not shouting myself out, but I'm just saying I'm very aware of it. Yep. And so she obviously talks about this Cathar origins, Templar origins, how it's this hermaphroditic, sometimes homo, I don't know, whatever. It has different meanings, different layers of meanings. And so she described it as a figure named Meat, M-E-T-E, and this peculiar brotherhood that exists, and they venerate this deity, but it's not really a deity. It's really like it's really about it's like a god of outer knowledge, but it's not like a god like how people think of it. It's kind of like
don't worship it. It's
like husk or something else.
It's a mnemonic device, if I want to put it as a a mnemonic device for those who understand and what he was trying to figure out as a glyph for basically the divining spirit of Sophia entering into physical space, I think is another good way to to say what he's trying to get at, and he puts it up there as the, you know, because you got the great goat Pan, which just equates to all. It is the Nox, it is the all things exemplified through the lower natures.
Yes.
And so you're getting what lower nature and higher nature is in a glyph at that time. And
Correct.
it's just been so taken over, and it kills me.
Correct. It's the distillation. That's what it is. It's all magic is alchemy.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. Inner, outer, secret alchemy. Alchemy of the exterior planets, your planetary birth chart. There's an alchemical process to remediate some of that chart. There's an inner process to activate the planetary energies, whether that's the chakras or the Dantian or the gates. You know, there's all different ways to describe it.
Yeah.
Then you have the secret layer, which is how can you use those things for magic, but inside of your mind, number one.
Yeah.
So that's a little different. Maybe we won't get into that, but that's what it's relating. It's relating the polarities, the two polarities that exist inside of you between higher and lower forces. The Hermetic ideal is that you remake yourself in Quicksilver. The Buddhist idea is that you are already made of Quicksilver. You just have to recognize that you are. So through certain practices, you can increase your potential for self-healing or for personal growth or for worldly wealth. I mean, there's many different things. People, I don't think for your audience, Brandon, but for a lot of people, they don't really understand what it is. Tantra is about alchemy. It's 100% about alchemy, but mostly it's about alchemy in your body. So that is number one.
Yes.
So, but that is true for all, that is true for all systems. That is at least one part of the inner meaning, right? Is the body, the physical body and the alchemical reactions and energetic centers that exist there, like making sure they're running in a unified field. Okay. I know you know this. So that's what Baphomet is. It's teaching you this kind of polarized. There is kind of something kind of dualistic in a way. Like, yeah, they say, it's a hermaphrodite, so it can't be dualistic. Well, that's just a reconciliation of the polarities through. They just take it through hermaphrodism, or whatever.
Yeah,
they take it in that way. Doesn't have to be like that. Doesn't even have to appear like that. It's just one way of understanding, right? And it might not even be the secret meaning, and it's actually not. So, and I'm not a Templar, but you can kind of figure out certain things and how they understood it, especially if you read Twyman. So what I'm saying is, you know, the symbols that are put out before us are not actually necessarily what they even mean. And this goes for, like, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a couple really big, have people with big YouTube shows, big occult podcasts. Supposedly they talk about the occultism of media and the occultism in films, particularly. I'm sure some people are guessing who I'm talking about. And yes, I'm talking about that person, but I'm talking about the whole ecosystem around them. Because if you, like, how can someone who's a lay person without a practice, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, maybe they aren't a lay person, maybe they do have a secret practice, but they're not explaining things in the inner level. They're taking from texts, and they're kind of like giving the blinds. People like often talk about this with Crowley, like how he puts blinds in all his work. And of course, he does, because all great magicians do that. All of them. Tantra does this. So you have to kind of figure out the meanings for yourself a lot of the time, or receive special instruction.
Let alone we speak in metaphor. That's how our language structure systems work.
Correct. So how can those kind of people teach anyone anything? And they can't. But what they can do, what those shows serve, is they do serve as the outer gateway for people to walk through as a hermeneutic and be like, maybe there is more than just quote unquote symbolic meaning. Maybe there is more than just the semiotic structure of film. Maybe there is more than the sort of film as literary criticism. Maybe there is a metaphysics, an actual magical metaphysics of cinema, but also extending to all reality. So they can teach you the outer density, and you can just watch some whatever clip that they do and kind of get what their whole, like, you don't have to watch all 90 minutes. You can just watch like a 10-minute clip, and you kind of get what they're doing. And so just start thinking of it like that. I'm not like against those people, but I also think like, again, it goes down to the point, like, what is your project? Like for me,
Yes.
my project is small. My project's the Aetherwave archive, as I call it, and it is building this sort of. It's not an online community in any way. It's kind of like it's kind of my personal project, I guess, in a way. It's like kind of like, oh, I'm meeting friends for like the first time, like our group of weirdos and misfits. Like obviously I've had friends before, but I'm just saying post COVID it's been challenging. So
It's been
but I
challenging.
also but I've
Yeah.
never been able to discuss magic in like in the ways that I'm able to online, partly because we don't use an institutional framework. We're able to discuss different things at different times in different ways because we kind of retain that flexibility. I think a lot of the people that are quote unquote teaching esoterica, selling courses, um, purporting to initiate you into Kabbalah, there's a lot of those kind of people. It's and like selling like how okay, so you and I both know people who like do a lot of like Enochian courses. I'm not
Yeah, it's
saying that those
wild.
people
It's fucking wild.
don't know how to do it, but like if it's 2020 fucking 6 and you have a Enochian tablet in your pocket, why? Why? Please tell me on Jesus, like tell me, why are you paying several $100s for a guy who basically has no other means to make money, basically,
Right.
but writing books, talking about the occult, has a Patreon podcast, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with getting your bag, but there is something wrong with when you're selling services and your only idea of what the occult is transactional. It's just teaching people completely inverted opinions. Like you want to talk about real Satanism? Satanism is
Ooh,
not
yeah.
about believing in Satan or having some
Not at
kind of like
all.
left-hand path even orientation. It is actually when you are doing that exact thing. You are selling people the idea of the occult in this very perverted way. And we know that a lot of these people actually kind of belong to a lot of these like platonic kind of like brotherhoods or these like kind of like very sexy oriented kind of
Yeah.
magical practices. And like, you know what, do whatever you fucking want. I don't care.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that is not to what sell to the normgoid publics. But the truth is also it's reflected in those people's lives very fundamentally. You can see like the occult is very dangerous, and it also takes you it actually can take life force
Oh,
to
for sure.
practice
Because
magic.
yes, because you don't understand what egregores you're connecting to. And I will just state how I think the occult. I think most of our lives we're giving to one occult or an organization or the next. And the danger, and what I mean by that is that our mainstream media, all the way into our government, to everything around us, has an occulted underground. And that just means it's a hidden layer that people don't understand is feeding the system that it's built upon. Just like our government, as they talk about, has its own black ops, right? The military industrial complex does. That our government has a deep state. And what that means is it's got these 3-letter agencies that also move and shake, that are given money by these corporations that are outside of it, as well as these billionaire oligarchical families that have been around for a long time. This isn't conspiracy anymore. This is real. And these people have been around, interconnected with religious structures for a very long time. And so that's why I go back to the idea of like, the occult is dangerous because it is the wellspring of the undercurrent of the unconscious, to give it to us in a more of a psychological Jungian kind of perspective. And when you're tapping into such a collective force and you don't understand the lanes that you're pulling this energy from, I think that's where it gets dangerous. And fascinating enough, just saying that, it made me think of what in Doctor Strange, the monk, or what's her whatever her name is, the person who teaches Stephen Strange, she in the movie was connected to what, Dormammu, and she was connecting to a dark occult force that then she actually used for the good. Fascinating enough and interesting, something that so that's a fascinating reflection upon the metaphor of how media takes on what is being actually happening in the microcosmic worlds of every individual. So it's like, even Catholicism has its esoteric understanding, Christianity, all ortho bros, all scientific materialism worships at the altar of its own levels of skepticism and what they're trying to get at. And so I'm expanding upon that. Jen, I want you to keep going. I have to use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
No problem. You go for it. I'll obviously can talk for 10 minutes. There's no problem.
You got this.
Long. Okay. Okay. So I love the point that SMS 17 made about the daughter Zion being granted by Hashem the hooves of iron from Micah 4:13 and crushing the nations of the earth. So yes, I think this is very Aeon of the daughter. Obviously, there's a hermetic component to sort of this interpretation, but I'm not saying it as in like a surgical reassignment of any kind of Paracelsian nature. I think this is referring to specifically transformation, because what is a unicorn? Well, a unicorn in mythology has to be, it's only written by a virgin maiden. So if you want to use my Aeon of the daughter framework, you could say that the unicorn is the mount or the vehicle or the vahana, as we would call it in Sanskrit, of the daughter of breaking klippas, the Aisha Zenanim, or the Nuria. That's her Gnostic name. So you could easily say that this is like a sort of Twilight language, Sambodia Gaia, referring to a similar or interrelated concept. And of course, if you listen to this show or listen to my show or listen to the Grey Lodge, you will know that I always say to learn Kabbalah for the first time as the bride of Malkuth. I know you brought that up, SMS. You have to be receptive, and one of those ways to be receptive is to watch Sailor Moon. And what is the mount of Chibi-Usa? I mean, it is. It's the Aeonic framework. It's so referenceable, right? Like everybody can go watch it and be like, Jin's not crazy. I see it too. Chibi-Usa, the daughter of Selena, the daughter of the queen of the moon. She has pink hair, just like the Aeonic idea. She rides a unicorn. That is the whole idea. She rides a unicorn. And so that is what will transform the world. Now, what does the unicorn mean? The unicorn does have actually multiple layers of meaning. We won't get into that, but I'm just saying that this is part of what it is too, is being able to accept that there are speculative and different perspectives on how these things can be broken down, and being okay in terms of ambiguity. Like being okay and being like, okay, the Golden Dawn doesn't agree with Typhonian OTO here, but maybe there's a historical precedent here, and neither of those two groups agree with it there. Okay, right. So you have to choose for yourself what you want to believe, rather than just be a receptacle. See, that's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying that being the bride of Malkuth. She doesn't accept all the knowledge. If you want to say the penetrating force, she's not saying it's all good. She only accepts the knowledge of the father, or her, aka her husband. That's the whole idea. So what comes from the consort, if you want to call it that? What comes from the father? Well, that's interesting. Writing the names of things, Hod, but it also comes from Gevurah, discernment, also comes from Binah. It also comes from textual sources. It also comes from Chokmah, creative, experiential wisdom. It also comes from Hesed, loving kindness, and it also comes from Netzach, which is like, what can we put into the world that will continue the legacy of knowledge production? What is eternity in a world that is always in flux?
Oh, right. So, nice.
That's what it is. And I love the Doctor Strange thing you brought up, Brandon, because it goes back to something that is perennial that we discussed in the Grey Lodge, is why do all of these superheroes need to go to Tibet to gain their magical powers?
Right.
But it also ties into something we discussed last week, Dormammu, Dormammu or whatever. I know his name.
Dormammu.
Dormammu, correct. That is also who Magick, like Magick, the character that we talked about, that's also
it
possessing force
is
for her.
of Dormammu. Yes, it is. Nice. I forgot about that actually.
He wants to be the sorcerer supreme, so he always tries to take over the human realm. That's part of like his. He's like one of those demons who's not evil. Like he's not part of the anti-cosmic forces of the demons. He's actually like a demon, I think it's what it's called, or a Kako demon. I can't remember. He's one of those that is not interested per se in the human world, but what he wants is all the magic.
Right. Yes.
So you could say that he's the archetype of the dragon too. And that's why Magick sort of has to slay him with her magic sword.
Right. Oh, I like that a lot. And I was talking about the ancient one, just so people understand. I couldn't think of the name. And they changed that from being a Tibetan person, interesting enough, to then, a woman and not a Tibetan person because of China. Fascinating enough is like, we actually don't want that because of Tibet. Not the point. Interesting enough, these are massive factions and ideological wars of separate egregores. And it's something fascinating you're saying about Tibet in itself, because that's exactly where Blavatsky talked about her the masters that she was tapping into if she went there. And I like that. But we do know who did go there, the Nazis. They went to Tibet to figure out the ancient secrets, fascinating enough, because of how much occult like knowledge and wisdom, the esoteric wisdom that they were after. Hitler and his what are they called? The people that were
Yes. So no Golden Dawn people come after me.
The Thule Society. Yeah.
No TOS people come after me. I'm literally just saying my opinion. I'm sorry, Egypt bros. I'm so sorry. Oh, the Masons, please, the Masons don't come after me. I know that everybody will be upset. I don't think the perennial system, the primordial system, I'm not a perennialist, I'm an axialist, so I actually don't care about what the primordial system is. The primordial system is in your own mind. It's already here. Let's move forward with the Aeon. That's my idea. I know that's very unsatisfactory. I know people want to recreate the yield structures of like paganism or European traditions. There's a really interesting idea that I spoke a little bit with Scott about. America maybe was where humanity came from. I know this is very esoteric, like this is very like occult theory, origin theory, very tool society in a way, but not of Europe. There's an idea, though, that perhaps humanity did arise on the New World Island.
That's Kaiba actually talks about things like that.
We've returned here, right? We've returned here.
Yep.
And so what we need here is not European systems. It's not Asian systems. It's not anything to do with that. It's the metaphysics of the sons and the daughters, which means that we have to make anew.
Yeah. The new Atlantis.
It doesn't mean that we're starting from first principles. It means that we are basing it on wisdom science that exists, but we're taking it in the Aeonic direction.
Yeah, I think that's important.
In my opinion, that is what we should be doing. But okay, so for the primordialists out there, yeah, America probably represents the primordial place. And I think this is interesting because it does go very much along with Hyperborea, which I have been contacted by several rabbis telling me that this is actually a true Kabbalistic concept. So I don't know. I never put it in a Kabbalistic frame. Like I never did, interestingly enough, for all my love of Kabbalah. But I do believe that this actually could be true. And I think that the wheel is here. And I think this is the new world Aeon. And I think we're so fortunate to be born in this time. And yes, things are
I feel that way.
lacking meaning. They're very decoherent. We live in a time of chaos, but we have just broken out of the tunnels of our fucking consciousness, our low consciousness, our veils of the world have been lifted. We are just becoming the brides of Malkuth right now.
Right. Yes. That's
so nobody's better than anyone else. The institutions are not more powerful than you. You are your own psychic, psionic force, you could say. But we are also more powerful together in the mass. That does not mean we all have to agree, right? But there is something to be said about appreciating the ground upon which you dwell, having a relationship with the earth as it exists, not as you want it. And this is another thing. Dharma. What is American Dharma? Well, American Dharma is not just what some like Odin bro wants it to be. It's just not. Dharma might not even belong to Buddhism, and Buddhism would not even say that Buddhism is the only kind of Dharma. No, Dharma is the primordial truth.
Yeah.
Buddhism does not hold the reins of primordial truth. What Buddhism has is the view with a capital V, means that it is the nature of how we should approach wisdom science, the nature of how we should work through our own minds, work through our bullshit. I know you were talking about this, Brandon.
Yep.
The traumas of the past. Like, I am horrible at this. I've got so much bullshit that I'm still working through. And it's a process. It really is. Like, process theology wins again. It is a constant reformation, reconstruction, zimzum, every fucking time. That's what it is. That's what we're doing. That's why we're here. We're fulfilling our karmic debts, and then we're also trying to bring those things into better and right relations.
Yeah, no, I completely love that, and that's a fact. Like, so I was just saying, is like, to hit off of America being a place where their things already were, right? And Kaiva has talked about, fascinating enough, that's one of her favorite things to hit on every once in a while when news is stemming up about America and different things is going on. It's like it's fascinating. I just, so everybody knows, I detest out of Africa theory. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. There's so much evidence that that's not true, let alone the idea of lineality coming from only one place. All these different things. Doesn't really matter. The idea goes back to what the term New Atlantis means, as Sir Francis Bacon was writing about it and trying to, have all these different deists and these Masons and these people who were passing on a lineage of what Jocelyn Godwin talks about as the golden thread through history, and these practices that have this, so to speak, lost key. This lost key of Freemasonry idea, the idea of the Holy Grail, Aladdin's lamp, and the unconscious. And so it's just such a fascinating thing that then, like, obviously America is that melting pot for all these things and the booming on. And I think that's why there's so much chaos here right now, is because it's a land. It's a land of all geographies, as well as the Grand Canyons themselves have so much hidden shit within them that you can't even go into the Grand Canyon. What does that mean?
Okay, so I had a guest on 2 times in my earliest, like right at the start of my show. He's an Australian fellow. His name is Grub. He taught me some really interesting shit, and he was rather good at Kabbalah as well. So he talked about how in Australia, where he lives, there's a series of Masonic markers, obelisks, that run the whole length of the country. And if you put them on a map, especially the ones that are missing, even the ones that are missing or like historically were there but are moved, or sometimes that happened. They would build a road, so they'd move it to the center of town. But if you put them all in the historical positionalities, it actually creates a grid pattern. This is something we've even discussed in the group chat in terms of Mongolia, and what are called the deer stones. The deer stones function much like this. They are a grid pattern that exists all the way across the steeps, and ancient times it would have extended well into places like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, maybe even all the way to Persia. Who knows? So you have this grid pattern. Well, this makes perfect sense from a Chinese point of view, and I know you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, Brandon. The Earth also has their acupressure points.
Yes, the ley lines.
The ley lines, the dragon ley lines. Those exist within the Earth.
Yeah,
that's exactly true. And when you build the obelisk, which is the natural receptacle, the sort of upward facing, it is phallic, but it's not. It is and it isn't. So it is phallic, but it's not. It's a generative force, an upward moving force. We talked about this last time.
Yeah.
There is such a thing called upward rising lightning. It actually happens a lot more than people believe.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, a lot of photos of lightning actually are depicting upward moving lightning. Why were we as children not taught about upward moving lightning? That lightning can actually start from the earth, from the primordial waters, and rise to the supernal waters of the sky.
Exactly.
That's talking about our own potentiality, our own diamond thunder. Or you want to talk about like David Hyam Smith. Everybody knows. I'm sure everybody's like, "Oh, shut up, Jen." Like we know that he's like your Kabbalah guy, and like yeah, he is. But I talked about this before I knew him too. Is that the world? Excuse me, I had the hiccups. Is made of diamond thunder. And we are made of diamond thunder, and we can rise in consciousness, and we can climb the tree, and we can climb the tree from Malkuth. We don't have to climb downwards. It depends on our orientation, but you don't have to climb downwards. Right. You can climb upwards. And so I like the idea that we can climb upwards using the idea of the lightning flash, the lightning strike, which leads us right to Dath or right to Kether, depending on your system, right? Everybody has different soteriological goals. And we can do amazing, incredible things. I sincerely believe that. I have seen amazing and incredible things. And and I'm not saying people have to like take me seriously, but I'm saying that
don't take me seriously. Figure it out for yourself. Just find
exactly.
We're like guides here.
You were talking about like the Grail. You're talking about like the Grail, the genie's lamp, the cup of like all the ages, all of that. The primordial cup. Do you want to know the secret of Tantra? I'll give everybody in the audience the secret of Tantra right now. The secret of Tantra is the skull cup, your own skull cup. Yeah, that is the primordial grail. That is the primordial cup. The receipt of all knowledge exists within you, infinite incapacity. So think about that.
Yeah, no, I love that. Fascinating enough. So there's two different ways to write magic and mysticism, mystical path. You could think of as the seat of the soul, the grounding in the Muladhara chakra or whatever, as you're moving all the way up to the top, and it blooms into the all things, and then you get the opposite, which then not the opposite, but you get the magical pathway, which is, and we spoke about it earlier, the Kabbalistic cross, right, brings that Ketheratic spark, that space, that sphere, which is actually your Ein Sof, the initial lightning strike from the down, and it brings it into the body from the top of the head all the way down, and you're guiding it down. The same thing with the middle pillar. When you're doing the middle pillar ritual, you're starting by vibrating the god name Eheya at the top of the head, and you work your way down. And why I think they've always done both sides of things, right? Why the magic and the mysticism are in an integrated whole is because of it's that exact representation of the lightning strike. Where does it start? From the bottom of the earth up? Does it go from the sky down? Or as the Taoists think about it, are we as man but the center point between the heavens and the earth, which then leads us into Tai Chi and what fucking Ethan Indigo and I are going to be talking about on Wednesday, which is why their embodied practice is so important to take it on in these practices so you can realize whatever that theurgical thing is, and then not get so dogmatic in it and realize everything we've done is a syncretized variation, which is then fascinating enough. We get to the syncretization of what we have with this occulted YouTube and all these different little nodes and modules of existence out there. Shout out to Dusty's my boy. All these modes of existence. And it goes back to then what Jin was saying with the ley lines, is that fascinating enough, your body has its own ley lines. That's why the micro and the macrocosms are intersecting. Yes. And just think what's going on with the fucking these little golden like rectangles that we're peering into as we're talking, sending ourselves out to each other so we can find a beacon of hope of somebody else that I can speak it to about this, because I want to talk about what you were saying a little bit ago of like magic is like in your normal everyday world, we live in an exoteric understanding of the world. And so once you start talking about things like magic and mysticism, the number one thing when I first started Magus in the Media, when I'd be all like, oh, I practice magic. Yeah, I don't tell that to a lot of people, but it's like magic. It's Magus in the Media. It's old magicians of old. And they're like, oh, cool. Do you know how to do a card trick? And I'm all like, well, I can do one, but that's not what I mean. But it's so funny, the illusionary nature of stage magic to what you're doing when you're in a ceremonial set is so fascinatingly close. And you can go back to one of my videos. First videos I ever put out was using the prestige in an understanding of like ceremonial magic and its differences and similarities, because there's a lot there. But I this fascinating thing that just keeps revolving around my mind is the narratives of today and why Plato is so important to walking out of the fucking cave into the light. Is it has that other ascent, descent kind of understanding, is that once you peer into the ideal realms, you go back into the cave to make sure that you don't get stuck as a slave in the cave, but also that you can talk to other people, knowing that you can't wake them up, but that then through conversation they can walk their way out of the cave and back in. And so that's a bunch of...
Well, that's the grace you have to allow people, and that's really difficult.
Yes.
That's really difficult. I struggle with that, Brandon. I struggle with that. I feel like I tell people, I'm like, here's the framework that I did it. Here's like everything. Like, this is my soul. Like, here I'm like laying it out. Like, it's like, for a summer, during high school, I went to AUP, American University in Paris, and did a French. As you know, I'm half French, so my parents were like, "You're gonna go learn how to speak continental French, aka French properly, instead of Quebecois accent, right?" So one of the things that I used to eat was a fresh baguette with brie and or some kind of soft cheese like that, goat or sheep usually, and fruit, like strawberries or chocolate or something like that. Mix. So it's all like you do like a sandwich. That basically was what I'm saying. Open faced. And I forgot where I was going with that. Anyways, I'm so sorry about that. I totally forgot. I'm sure I'll remember. But I think the point is like you make the best of the marga. You make the best of the path as you are able at that time, and you extend grace to people who are not fully capable of, like, this is what I was trying to say. I feel like I put everything that I safely can put out there. I feel like I put all of it out there as much as I feel good about putting out. So that's what I'm saying. My soul is like that brie, fruit, and chocolate sandwich that I used to eat every day living in France. So that was one thing. No, I didn't live in France, but I stayed there for 2 months. So
that's living.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I lived in an attic apartment, and it was fun. It was fun. It was a quick little, sojourn. But anyways, my soul is like that sandwich, and my content is basically that thing. And so I try and put it out there, but it doesn't mean that people are going to even care, follow it, experience the same thing. And what my experience is that most people won't even try. You can say, I have said this since day one. I remember being on my first podcast talking about the Mahavijjas and Kabbalah, the same thing I spoke with Eros about. I said, the host of that show asked me, well, how do you get there, Jin? And I said, oh, I just use my mala and I recite the names, and then I recite the mantra, and it carries me along. The vehicle is the mantra itself. The word itself carries you into the non-dual state, and it also carries you into the non-dual activity, both at the same time. And I've said it so many times, and I've just come to the realization, like, either people think I have like a really old-fashioned, like, grandpa way of going about it, which I don't think it is. I think it's like, quote unquote, primordial. I think that is the primordial way to get there. But that is obviously me, right? And I'm obviously very comfortable in Buddhism or very comfortable in Dharma, so I can give myself to it sincerely. But just because I am doesn't mean that people are going to listen, care, or even do with themselves. But I feel like that is a good way.
Yeah.
But everybody has to go through their own experiential, like, gnosis. And sometimes the gnosis is shallow. And sometimes that's what people need too. People can't handle the non-dual truth right away. I couldn't have handled it. I couldn't have handled it in my 20s when I was doing like black magic, white magic, left hand path, right hand path. I was I wasn't all over the place. I was very functionally and called myself a left hand path Catholic. I went to mass 5 days a week.
A left-hand path Catholic.
Yes, that's how I thought of myself. I was
love
doing
that.
Solomonic magic. I was working with
That makes
very
sense.
transgressive saints. There are left-hand path saints in Catholicism. I know a lot of people are like, "What is he talking about?" No, there are. I'm not talking about folk saints either. I'm talking about there are saints within normative Catholicism that are considered left-hand path saints.
Nice.
But I did not just with that. But so anyways, what I'm trying to say is I tried to ride the polarities through dualism.
Yeah.
And that did not help me.
No.
That was all bullshit. I packed all that stuff up. I'm not going to actually tell the story. You'll have to listen to my Scott Ladati episode. I actually told the story for the very first time of why in 2018 I packed up all my magic shit, all my consecrated seals of Solomon, all my Masonic. I didn't have regalia, but I had like a Kadoosh set that I got from a really expensive Jewish supply store. I had all these expensive Catholic beeswax candles that I wrote, had inscribed on all that. I packed it all up, every single thing, all the saint statues, all of that. And it wasn't about doing a Zen moment where I was like, I'm giving away everything or breaking it all. Or going anti-iconographic, because obviously I'm a tantric Buddhist, so I never went anti-iconographic. But what it helped me to do was that helped me to really zero in and focus on the thing that would be the most generative, most productive, and most fruitful in my life, which is tantric Buddhism. That is for me. I'm not telling anyone else what to do, but for me, that is what made sense. So I think that I don't even know the point, but I think the point really is I've always tried to relay this relative truth about myself and my own life and my own marga to the greater whoever listens to my show, whether that's 300 people or 1,000 people, which is both sometimes.
Yeah,
that's how it goes. You have great, you have great things that get well received, and then you have things you never hear about that you might think are great, that you might really love. I have episodes I love.
Oh yeah.
That never got any attention, never got any nobody really cared about. So I think that what you have to try and come from a place of relative truth and sincerity and say, this is my methodology. Maybe this will work for you. Maybe it won't. But I believe it will. I believe my methodology is the primordial one. If you really want the truth.
That's what you
I know I said
last.
Think. That's
what you Kaiba says the same thing.
It's true. The word is fundamentally magic. The logos is fundamentally magic. Buddhism preserves the idea. Buddhism carries the idea that you can hold the word in your consciousness.
I'm probably a believer.
It's magic. I don't know what to tell people. You want a sorcery that survived the last 3,000 or 2,000, or at least 2,500 years, but it's not really. Maybe just say it's from the 1100s. Okay, who cares? It is what it is. We're all remaking everything, just like Hermeticism. Hermeticism is not primordial.
Oh no, that's
Hellenism has been remade dozens of times.
Yeah,
you know this. We were laughing about this, about Platonism and Neoplatonism. That stuff has all been remade hundreds and thousands of times. Gurdjieff didn't even write one single word himself. Everything that Gurdjieff wrote was by his students, which all took it in 10 million different directions and made different working groups. Nothing is actually his own words. It's like the words of Jesus, but ascribed to his disciples who didn't even speak Georgian or Russian.
Yeah, through his symbol set, through his nervous system and how he experiences it, he was able to capture an audience. Just this is why what's going on with our social media isn't new, and that's something I want people to realize, is that this thing that we have in front of us is connecting us it's intersubjectivity at a mass scale. It's that high. It's the Merleau-Ponty talks about intersubjectivity from an phenomenological understanding of how we perceive other people in time space. And as we do so, we are always in having a subjective kind of experience as we go about it. But what's happening is I truly think that our technologies with the right people at the right time has the ability to turn them on to the higher spheres and have us remember our telepathic nature of things. Because fascinating enough, what if the telephone and the computer one day they just, like, whoever had them on in the world, just all of a sudden you didn't see it anymore, and it dawned on you that you invented the computer and the telephone conceptually so you could remember your own telepathic nature of how the mind works in space, and you just needed to know how and remember how to make sure others don't peer into your memory sphere soul. And I think that's a concept that is fascinating, to think that these things might not be real, but I'm actually here and I invented these things so I could remember this nature of existence as such. Does that make sense? You following me?
Yes, because this is Aeon of the Daughter is a psychic Aeon.
That's why I brought it up. Exactly. That's
it's a psychic. I mean, you said it perfectly. It's not a magical Aeon. Even it's not even a tantric Aeon. I know some people have said that. I've said that. It is a psychic Aeon. It is fundamentally about consciousness, about our consciousness in interaction with each other. Now, are the technologies ameliorating for that? Well, one of the ideas of the Aeon of the Daughter is, if you imagine it as a daughter, it's you could say it's a dakini, as I've said, and she's dancing on the corpse of desire. What does desire mean in 2026? Well, it's certainly not what they meant by desire in like 700 AD in like Gujarat, right? It's a different kind of desire. Maybe all desire is the same. Maybe maybe desire is primordial, and it is. That's a very Buddhist way to look at it.
But it takes different forms through time, and that's the historicity of our experience.
Correct. So maybe what the daughter is for, as I have posited, is to tame Rahu. But in this case, I'm not actually even referring to the planetary deity. I am and I'm not. As I said, the software on our black cube matrices is Ketu, the smoky tail, the subtle body, because that's what software is. It's not tangible. It's just binary code, right? Ones and zeros that appear, very delusory, that appear on our screens. What if the black cube itself is Rahu? So if it's the Aeon of the Daughter, she stands on the black cube of Rahu. Well, who is the Aeon of the Daughter? The Aeon of the Daughter is us.
Yeah, exactly. And so people understand, one of the ways of understanding the daughter is, I don't know if you've ever read it, but Crowley wrote a poem about the daughter of Malkuth, as she, Lapis Lazuli, I think is what it's called. I don't remember. Somebody's going to fact check me on that. But it starts off with the understanding that, just like Sleeping Beauty, we are all within the kingdom of Malkuth, the daughter who is sleeping and trying to awaken herself as she works her way up to the highest levels of the tree of life. And it's a fascinating understanding of that.
Sailor Moon.
Watch Sailor Moon. Fascinating how that always comes.
Watch Sailor Moon. Chibi-Usa. Who is the special protector? This is really interesting. Who is the special? People love Kenny G, Kenneth Grant, Shadow Solar. Who loves the daughter with the pink hair? Chibi-Usa. Queen Serena assigns her special protector. Who is that? Sailor Pluto. What is the weapon of Sailor Pluto? It's sound, death scream. That's what her magical attacks is. She holds a key, a giant key. She has a magic wand, but the wand is more like a scepter. It has a heart at the end. What is that saying? Lamed Mem Dalet. That is the key word for the daughter. Love as the cause of knowledge. There you go, right there. She is the special protector of Chibi-Usa. If you assign Pluto to Dath, as I do, I don't think Pluto is always Dath. I think sometimes Pluto is also Kether. I think it can be switched. So she opens the gate. There's Chibi-Usa right there. The little pink, the little kid, the little Chibi.
Oh yeah.
So that's the daughter, and then the special protector is Dath, which is non-dual Gnosis. It's really that simple. Just watch Sailor Moon It's right there. So my Skywife SMS 717 just said the fifth element, etheric for real, for real.
Oh yeah.
I always say that too. The other series to understand is the fifth element. It
It's
is
one
the
of my
Aeon of the
favorite of all
daughter.
time. It's one of my
It's the Aeon
favorite.
of the daughter.
I agree.
They knew.
That's a great. They did know, and again goes back to the French. It's crazy.
Because what is the fifth element? The fifth element is space, but it's sound. And but the secret meaning in that film is at the very end, and she says he goes, I love you, and she's like, I don't know what that even means. Like, do humans even know what that means? Do people know what that means? And most people don't.
Yeah.
And but he's like, but I do, and he's like, but you have to say it back because that's what's meaningful, meaning that love has to happen in perception. And so she goes, I love you, and then he goes, I love you, and then that's what activates her fifth element, because love is the true nature of the fifth element.
Yes, of will. He was the emasculation of the masculine of will, and hers is love. Even though she was a warrior in and of itself, it's such a beautiful film. That's a great explanation. I love that, and it's got everything in the beginning.
He's even Hasidic.
He's Hasidic. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yes, he is. Yeah.
He treats her with love. He treats her with like true compassion. He does not get mad at her for not being able to understand the world. She is the true bride of Malkuth, except that, as you're saying, Brandon, she is a warrior. So she's not receptive in the way that the bride of Malkuth is usually depicted. She's of a different Aeon. She is Geveratic. It even matches her hair. Her hair is Geveratic. Why? Because she is a warrior, and she's not the receptive bride. She's going to be the bride of will, just like you said of Bruce.
Yeah.
She is going to decide who she is with. She has this deep love for humanity, this deep love for people. She chooses one. And it's not even about monogamy. I'm not I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not saying how people should live in any way. I'm saying that is her archetype. Her archetype is I choose.
And it's in the archetype of I choosing, and to hit off of that is completely right. And it's not that it's monogamy as such. It's the idea of the sacred marriage, and I will fight that tooth and death no matter who you are. That there is the sacred marriage between the masculine and the feminine, and that is written in all things all the way back to the oldest philosophical religion, I think, is that of the Taoist principles. That yin and the yang, the back and the forth. The extremes of these things is what creates the 10,000 things, and it just finds itself through different expressions of what that means through time.
Crush in Nihilism asked an amazing question: is void the same as space and emptiness? No, I would posit all three of those things are actually different.
I would too.
Void is a negative space, meaning it draws in light. Space is simply the distance between two cosmic bodies, and emptiness is actually not empty, but it is luminous and massless, much like a star or the starlight. But light can also be sound, and sound also travels through space as invisible rays.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I can't actually. Yeah, there's no improvement there. That's pretty spot on. So you just got a great
yin yang. Germanic paganism has fire and ice. Yes. This
Yes.
is from this is also from the Stephen Flowers book, The Lords of the Left Hand Path. He has a whole little section on fire and ice. Absolutely. But think of it in terms of Kabbalah. I know this kind of sounds very transgressive when we're talking about Germanic paganism, but it makes a lot of sense because Kabbalah is not really Jewish. Kabbalah is the primordial system, but the Jews did preserve it really well. So we draw from Hebrew Kabbalah as a tradition because it preserves a lot of meanings and ideas, and it has interesting innovations of its own.
Yeah.
But think of it, Netzach is the diamond, so then it must be the third tertiary state of water, because that's what that pillar is. It's the three natures of water. Netzach is ice. Hesed is the ocean, or it can also be a river, but that's a little different. But yes, it can be, and fresh water. And Chokmah can be water vapor. That's only if you're taking the pillar by itself. The pillar obviously exists in dialectical relationship with the Sephira from the center pillar as well as from the left pillar, the pillar of fire. But so what I'm saying is when you're talking about fire and ice, you're talking about Gevra and Netzach. That's an amazing relationship in a way because, well, think about it. If you're blasting a block of ice with fire, you are creating luminosity. You are creating refractions in light, so rainbows. You are illuminating the waters, the primordial waters, as well as you are affecting the transmutation of the relationship of that pillar. You are enacting the transformation of ice into liquid and as well as vapor. And Mars loves Venus, well known in astrology.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't mean that Venus loves Mars. She doesn't necessarily love Mars because he can be very overbearing. The fire can be, it destroys what is beautiful.
Hades Hades comes after why can't I even think of her name? It brings her into the underworld, right? The mysteries. As Demeter then pines
Persephone.
after her daughter the whole time. So yeah, her prior incarnation, and then she goes.
Well, shout out Eros because we were talking about this in the chat this afternoon or this morning, talking about presence or understanding Venus and its transits. I was thinking okay, so if Eros asked me personally, it was just a speculative exercise I gave myself. I said, so it's so interesting that you even brought it up. What kind of archetypal, I'm just saying that air quotes, archetypal form of the gods thank you, Brandon, would I personally not worship, but venerate as an outer principle to activate the sort of my awareness, my perception of the movement of Venus? Well, Persephone would be what I choose. First of all, the pomegranate is the Kabbalah fruit.
Oh, yeah.
The Kabbalah can be contained.
Garden full of pomegranates by Israel Gardi.
Correct. Yeah. Or the Orchard of Pomegranates by the Rabbi Cordovero. So the maybe two most important Western books, texts on the Kabbalah, both after pomegranates. Well, there's a reason for that. Yeah. But we won't get into that today.
Not today.
I'll say is pomegranate is the metaphor for the entire tree. So you have a daughter who goes under chthonic. She goes under the earth for half the year. And the other half of the year, she comes back out with secret knowledge because she knows the knowledge of the underworld, which is the unseen world. Yeah. Right? She accesses the Dath, the Plutonic quality, because that's another name for Hades is Pluto, right? So think of Sailor Moon again. Okay, you have a daughter figure who's guarded by Sailor Pluto. Interesting. And so there's a Plutonic element that's chthonic, but she's also spatial. This is really important. This is where a lot of Hellenic hermeticists fuck up really bad. And it's because they don't know good Kabbalah. There's a chthonic and a spatial element. Well, I'll be nicer tonight. There's a chthonic and a spatial element to the daughter. And so because fire is a kind of a transient property, fire doesn't need to, it can exist in space, fire. Because a star is also on fire. The sun is also, I'm talking about the SUN, is also a star, right? So it's on fire. Gas giants are on fire in a way. There's a luminosity, there's radiance, there's radiant heat, there's all of these things. But the space also takes a lot of the heat out. So you get this really interesting alchemical formulation of the heatless flame, which is very daughter-like. So yeah, Persephone is would be a great sort of archetypal deity practice for people who have, people like me who have a deeper relationship with the Plutonic. And then you would need that kind of Venusian, Path 17, the star card. You need that kind of, I'm not that great at Venus either. So I'm thinking how can I access it in a way that is workable for me and like where I position myself on the tree, well, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because the daughter is in love and she yearns for love. That's kind of her thing, right? Is Persephone longs to be in love, but she learns to love Pluto. I'm not saying it's like her great soulmate of like the worlds, but there's obviously some kind of karmic or cosmic entwinement that they ended up getting married in the first place. It's part of the Leela.
For sure. And well, let alone the idea of let's all make sure we remember the Eleusinian mystery schools are just that, the lesser and greater mysteries of Persephone as core. First off, that's her first maiden, you know, she's the maiden. And then from there, she gets stolen by Hades as he pops up as she's walking through the fields of Eleusis, doing what? Picking who? The narcissus flower. And then she gets taken. And then Demeter is like, just irate, and that's when all of a sudden she's like, no, I will not give fertility to all things. And just think about this. Let's remember, we know the idea of you shouldn't eat of the fruit of good and evil, right? Or when you're in the realms, like in the movie Pan's Labyrinth, she shouldn't have eaten from the fruit in the other realms, in the Fey realms. If you're going into the Fey realms, do not take that which is already there. She goes down and she eats the pomegranate seed, and then she has to stay there. And then she makes this pact, and then he's all like, well, of course, I love you. You can never leave, but you can go up there for 6 months out of the year. And that's understanding these archetypal forces of not only humans, but humans in the world. And I think that's really important because we're getting both the cosmogenic and cosmological stories of how these elements exist in the world, a part of a human nervous system, as we're trying to understand storytelling. And so it's a fascinating thing of like how we can hit on it and how we see these in our media, but then how it is something that the ancients worship through their mystery traditions, both exoterically in a way that all were welcome, but not all were able to go into the greater mysteries, because not everyone that took part in the lesser mysteries had the highest understanding of what they were even witnessing, nor did it matter, because through the practice of the mysteries, you then were inducted into the higher mysteries if you if you understood, and somehow these priests and priestesses knew these individuals as they were reaching higher states of consciousness to be able to understand the forces of nature itself. And just so everybody understands that, I'm going to bust off onto another and very closely related
hold
thing.
on, Brandon. Let me jump on
Please.
real quick. I apologize.
Please. No, that's good.
I've spoken a lot. I get to speak a lot on your show. I really appreciate you, Brother Brandon, for allowing me to do that. I know I can. I'm a talker. I got it. Persephone is not unique at all. In terms of the mythic landscape, there's a Japanese myth of a brother and a sister who go into the underworld.
Izanagi and Izanami?
Correct.
Thank you.
I was hoping you'd know.
Shout out Naruto. Shout out Naruto.
Shout out Naruto. And like many animes, mangas, light novels. I mean, this is like the Nihon Shoki. Like, this is the shit. This is like the foundational Japanese mythology. Yeah. It's the exact same story. She even eats a pomegranate. So there you go. Well, and then, but there's an even cooler, I mean, that's a really cool story too, but there's an even better story from Korea, which is called Princess Bari, Bari. Okay. She is the first shaman. So a Korean shaman, which is called a mudang. So she actually she descends into the underworld so she can gain power over the spirits, to gain the spirit compact. So she can perform the shamanic rites, that is her, to perform the shamanic rites of exorcism, blessing, and invocation of the gods, the higher spirits. Now, Korean gods is not the same idea as the Hellenic gods. We're talking about forces of nature. We're talking about martial spirits, like martial artists who lived in historical times. A lot of modern shamans still invoke their personal protectors, people like Guan Yu, people who are familiar with like Chinese martial arts or Taoism, popular Taoism, not necessarily book Taoism. Yeah. But they'll recognize like Guan Yu. He is a Taoist saint. He's a Buddhist Dharmapala. That means a worldly protector, but he can be venerated personally to protect the upasaka, or the person who does higher Buddhist practices. supposed to like clear the obstacles of the worldly life so that person can then practice Dharma. So they have that a lot in Korea. You'll have people who are invoking like, like 16th century special generals who were like amazing swordsmen, or like war heroes, or even General MacArthur. There's a whole anthropological study on these kind of the adoption of certain kinds of shamans in a region.
Have you
General
seen this before?
MacArthur.
Side note: this is that real?
What?
The statue right here of Guan Yu in China, is that in China? Is that real? That's a cool picture. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
No, I'm sure it is.
That's crazy.
Cool dude. And I want to shout out Cassandra, because Cassandra is, we were talking about Cassandra, we talked about Chibi Usa so much. We were like, I was like bugging Brandon. I was like, watch Sailor Moon. If you just watch Sailor Moon, you understand the Kabbalah, which is true. And
this is what I was talking about. Sorry, I didn't have it on stream.
Oh, that's okay. That's why I didn't know. I was like, we're
still doing it live. We're doing it live.
Look, China also does this kind of like cultural heroes. It kind of like what they call whitewash cultural heroes, and sort of repackages them and repurposes them into mythical types that are tied to state nationalism.
For sure. They're so good at it. They're bureaucrats to the fullest. Yeah, for sure.
Correct. That does not mean this is like an outer. This is like exactly what the theme of tonight is. It's like repackaging esotericism into an exoteric for normies layer.
Exactly. Boom. Nailed it. I love that. No, it's complete. And they do it so perfect. And we're seeing it all over the place, even in our own culture. It's pretty crazy, you know.
I mean, it's the boom. Look, the boomers are in control. The Gen X are the influencers. You want to talk about like who the real influencer class is? Like, people complain about millennials. Millennials don't wield power. It's just like not even realistic. The boomers are the politicians, and for the most part, and the Gen X are the media people. They are the PMCs. They're not doing a good job at steering the ship. In fact, they're steering us back into like the shit ocean, if you want to call it that. And
no, completely. I mean, we're in the Inquisition, the new Inquisition.
I mean, that is kind of how it feels sometimes, because immediately if you have occult, if you discuss occult subjects and it's the wrong occult subject, oh, you're doing this to kids, or you're doing this, or you're doing this, or you're like a bad person. Or in like my case, they'll like say, oh, I'm running like a weird cult or something. People have no idea about, that is what the Inquisition is. It's about labels. It's about putting people in confined boxes, saying you cannot, these are the confines in which the discussion should be able to exist. I wanted to bring this up before, Brandon. There is a theory that we are entering like a pagan revival age. I know that I am not a pagan, and I am not that sympathetic to paganism at all, because I think it's of the old Aeon. I really do. I think it's past. I think we've already done it.
I think so.
If
agree.
The world is a Leela, if we live in the spiral of samsara, we have already done it. And maybe, and I've said this to Solar like so many times, and this is not about Solar. I'm just saying that I've already told him, like, bounce this idea off him. Is that I do think that the primordial system is closer to like a kind of Zoroastrianism. Like a Zoroastrianism.
I agree. Magus in the media for a reason. Magus. Yep.
I mean, Zoroastrianism really was a cult, like originally was like the Persian religion where everything goes. Some people would worship demons. Some people would worship angels. Some people would worship nature spirits. Some people would worship Garudas. Some people would worship the Amesha Smenta, which are the 7 principles inside yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody did their own thing. And then Zarathustra came in, was like, we need some reforms. This is like blood sacrifice to both gods and demons has gotten way out of control.
For sure. Oh, it's just ridiculous. What's ridiculous is because for my
I don't think that I'm going to say this. I'm half white, so people can say whatever they want. If they want to call me like a third world brownoid, that's totally fine. I don't think you have any spiritual wounds that are like unique, special, or like in any way
Talk about this, right? Yeah.
needs addressing.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think the term paganism just so we all know is such an overused term, and for some reason it was used in a way that just means anything that's not Christian, right? It wasn't even used as a slur, so to speak. It was just more like, those are the pagans out there, we don't really understand them, and then it can be used as a slur depending.
It's a totally nebulous term. It's like Hindus.
Term.
You want to be.
That's what I'm saying.
You want to talk about like. You want to talk about like what paganism heals. Do you want to be brown? Do you want to be a subcontinental? That's what you sound like. That's what it sounds like. Honestly, I wanted to say this for years.
Yeah.
It is the brownest, like it's like being a wingnut in 2026. It's like you sound just Indian. That's who the pagans are. That's how they think of themselves. They think of themselves as like the polytheists of the world, like the last polytheist outpost, like a 1.3 billion of them, all polytheists. They are the ones that are healing the world. That's what it sounds like when these like supposedly white pagan bros say like, oh, you know, our little hearts were harmed by Christianity. Yeah. Maybe
it's the same thing as Satanists, though, right? They're the same thing.
Yes. But not
the same thing in the fact that like
were Christian for 1,000 or 1,500 years, pretty much.
Yeah.
There is no wound. The wound is reconciling your own mind and yourself.
That's exactly it. And the idea that why not speak specifically? That's, you know, and so it's like, I get if you're more on the Norse magical end of things, because I have read a few magical Norse grimoires, or Icelandic, sorry, let me speak correctly, Icelandic grimoires, you know, and so there was a Christianizing of the old Norse and Icelandic magical accent, but I can't actually stand this Hellenized pagan world thing that people want to more put out into the ethos, because that's where I get confused about this term again, pagan, which isn't really anything. It's more like I think it's a postmodern take on a bunch of small little cultures. It's Hinduism.
Hinduism. Don't be brown. Don't be third world. You live in the new world. Embrace the new world spirits. Embrace the new world ethos. Embrace the Aeons.
You're so funny.
And plus, you want the truth about paganism? The thing is that all the modern pagans, they prefer. There's like the really weirdo, like feminine divinity ones. Obviously, I'm very like comfortable with feminine divinity. It's not like an issue for me. I'm more in line with feminine divinity than I am with like a patriarchal, masculine, like Godhead divinity. Like I'm more comfortable, I'm saying, personally.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of these like guys who are like, oh, okay, like it is like they're focusing around like a masculine deity, but they don't realize paganism, polytheism is not Aeon of the Father. Polytheism is Aeon of the Mother.
It is.
Why do you want to be in the long house? Why? Tell me. I really want someone to explain it. I thought we're moving away from the long house. The daughter burns down. If you read the Gospel of Nuria, the Epinoi of Nuria, she burns down the ark because it's made in deficiency. Why do you want to go in a burning building? Move outside of the long house, please. I'm begging you.
Yeah,
I mean, inevitably, people can do whatever they want. I know I'm being antagonistic and like very,
love it. That's what we do here at Magus in the Media. We like to light fires like the Promethean spirit itself. True Luciferians.
I mean, we are. Okay, fine. I'm fucking Luciferian. Great. I follow the Promethean flame, which I also think exists inside of us. That's fucking based. You want to say based? Like, I know it's such a boomer word now. All the boomers are like, that's so based. Okay. Luciferianism is based. Follow Luciferianism. There you go. Temple Knox for life. That. I don't know. That's good. I'm not affiliated. I'm not affiliated with anyone or any Temple Knox or anything like that. I'm just making a joke.
Ronin, bro. We're Ronin.
That's right. And like people can have their beliefs. People can be like, I want to pray to Freya. I want to pray to Odin. I want to pray to Loki. I want to pray to Thor. There's no problem. I have no problem with it. 100%. If that's what you want to do, Naga, like you do not have my blessing, but you can do whatever the fuck you want to do.
I agree. And it goes back to the idea I wanted to bring up, the thing about the Venus thing, which I think is really important, is another way to express these things are, again, I don't want to limit it to the term Joseph Campbell used instead of archetype was elementary ideas, because of the guy he really liked following as well. You know, elementary ideas, archetypes, forces of nature, balanced aspects of our own inner psyche. I think it's more important to balance out and understand why certain things attract us and repel us in the spheres of the mythological expression of these intelligences. And I think it's really important to understand why I would have a for or against, especially since if we're looking at the tree of life and each Sephira as a planet in and of itself, as more from the Jungian psychological aspect, which is just to the fact of, if you're trying to heal your psyche on this path of individuation through understanding that things must be embodied, that why would we want to push or repel? Because I know when my archetype of the lover is unbounded by the warrior, where the warrior is not honed and has the ability to cut away things, then I'm so vulnerable to all things in the world. But then when I finally have that warrior aspect to be able to cut things down, and the king and all the different like archetypes I'm continually talking about, it comes to the idea of like, why are we balancing out the planets in the hexagram ritual of ceremonial magic, or the elements in the pentagram rituals? And why are we seeing these things as more than just gaseous balls of stars moving through? Yes. We see them as intelligences, and these intelligences need to be balanced within ourselves, because there is no outside of us, you know, like it's that back to the Russian dolls motif. And so if we have to have an outer temple that is a mirror reflection of the inner temple, the astral temple, and as I'm trying to balance out things in my inner life, I need to then be able to balance them externally. So that's why we make altars to things. It's not just, oh my God, I'm super fucking new agey, or I'm a fucking pagan, neo-pagan bro, or I'm ritualizing Hecate, which I don't even want to hear that fucking name ever again. It's this idea is that I want to balance out this part of my psyche, so I have a mnemonic, something to remind myself that there is no such thing as outside of myself. That again, if I come across anything, okay, side note, and then we'll hit right back onto it. I want everyone to know that if they tell you disclosure happens and a fucking external God comes up, that you should probably not believe in it. And that's the only understanding, is that like, why now? You know, so always question the why now, is because you should have already dealt with these styles of interdimensional entities that are autonomous intelligences as you are dealing with your day-to-day lives. And then we can understand ourselves as we are the aliens in the world. Not that we are alien to this planet because we were born from this planet. We were born of Gaia or whatever, Demeter, or the spirits.
I like Gaia. I think that's cool. I think that's exactly right. I think it's very, I know it's like people are going to be like, oh, you're a universalist. Well, you know, we were talking about this in the chat, like in Buddhism also, we are arising on the corpse of the fallen goddess, the fallen mother. So that's Gaia. I mean, or Maya.
Whatever word you want to use.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you call it.
Or, you know, this realm of fantasy as we live on Middle Earth, or, you know. And so I think that's why it's important. And Peter Gray actually said something really cool in my talk. So everyone, if you haven't seen it, again, hit up the Scarlet Imprints talk that I did. It's
the best interview with Peter that I personally watched. And of course, I am a little jelly that he agreed to go on your show. But I honestly want the best for you. So I'm happy that you got to do it, because you did it justice. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
But I'm admitting I'm jelly. But not jelly of you per se. I'm just jelly that you got to talk to.
Yeah, of course. And I'm going to make you more jealous. Him and next month in May, I'm having 2 separate interviews, one with Peter Gray, and I'm going to specifically talk about the mythopoetic nature of these things. And then I'm going to do a separate one with Alkistis, and I want to talk about her embodied dance as well as like Red Goddess and all these things. So I'm so excited about that.
Awesome.
So I will shout out them all the time.
Yeah, I'll definitely plug that a lot. When you're ready to do that.
Thank you. And so what he said was, and I like his take on it, and I think this is the downfall of the more structured Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and all of those styles of institutions is why again, people are going to hate this. Somebody's going to clip it in the future when I'm fucking million subscribers. Is that I started off as like I read Crowley in and out, and that's how I started my practices, is with his understanding of what magic was.
Everybody seems to, and Crowley's not a bad place to start. There's a lot worse things to start from. Yeah. You can go by like, although the Llewellyn books have actually improved in quality so much from like when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Like we were reading like Teen Witch, like that was like what the Llewellyn books. I'm not kidding. It was like Teen Witch, Green Witchcraft, some John Michael Greer, Scott Cunningham, and none of it was like horrible, but none of it was like, it wasn't coherent. It didn't really make sense. Like the Green Witchcraft books, I see them for sale all the time at Watkins and like all the occult publishers that have IG accounts. And you know, I have all three. I have all of those three Anne Murrah books. They have beautiful covers. There's like mossy and like looks like a garden. There's no cosmology in it. She's talking about like a horned god. She's using Shiva sometimes. Sometimes she's doing the spells in front of a Buddha. Sometimes it's not really to do with anything with plants. She's not talking about, like, she lives in Brazil. She's like talking about like how her Portuguese grandmother was like a witch her family was like had some lineage from the 14th century and they've always been witches. And I'm like, okay, well, why would you worship Shiva? Like, that's clearly not a 14th century Portuguese lady. Like, I've been to Portugal. The Portuguese villages were very insular, isolated, and they existed in like little pockets in the mountains. 14th century people are not in Portugal. We're not getting little statues of Shiva or Buddha. No, okay, not at all. And they certainly weren't doing witchcraft in front of them. And they certainly were using a lot more green plants, and they weren't using little charms to the wind, like I invoke the south, the east, the west, the north, the fire and the water. Like, no, they would have had their own ways of looking at it. I'm not against traditional witchcraft. And like, I know Brandon was making fun of Hecate. I used to do that. I used to fuck with all that shit because she was like, this is how it was always packaged. Like Jason Miller wrote the whole Hecate book. I hate Jason Miller. I always say this. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. We can have a whole episode about that one day. Love to. Well, I know you probably want to talk to him, so maybe we shouldn't. But anyways, the point is like when I was young, Hecate was like repackaged. It's like a repackaging in a neo-pagan mythology, no matter how ancient. Look, I know a lot of Golden Dawn people love that goddess and will say like these wonderful Hellenic things about how ancient and stupendous her cult was. But if you really are interested in the actual like material culture, archaeology, and anthropology of those practices, you are talking about a Turkish goddess who comes from like an Illyrian goddess who comes from the steppes of Turkey, who was not a widespread cult. It was popular in certain regions, as very regional. It did not refer to the whole Hellenic world. And in fact, it didn't even come from Hellenic speakers. It was a true paganism. Now, is she a Titan? Is she is she like the gargantuan like witch lady under the earth? I don't know. We have the same mythology in Tantra. We have one goddess, the primordial goddess, exists in the abyssal realm under the earth. Is it the same? No, it's not the same, because we understand it like at stages of consciousness, meaning that she's not going to accept your offering of black puppies. And that is a traditional offering, an actual traditional offering of Hecate. Like, are you doing that in 2026? Are you offering her pomfret? That was one of the things they used to offer her. Those little, those mini sunfishes from the lakes in Greece.
Crazy.
Are you offering her bulbs of garlic? That was another one of her things. What I'm saying is that I'm very familiar with all of these kind of like both left-hand path and sort of modern pagan reconstructions of Hecate. And the truth is like, it's just another name. And But I understand the inclination to have like a witchcraft goddess or a goddess of magic.
Yeah.
But maybe like look at Doctor Strange, like Brandon brought up.
Yeah.
Who does Doctor Strange pray to? Doctor Strange does not pray to any deities. None. Zero.
No. Yeah,
Doctor Strange believes himself to be the Sorcerer Supreme because he motherfucking is the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yes. Because
so
he
that's
sat
maybe a
down
lesson
and
for us.
he learned the textbooks. It's the image. I couldn't find it right now. I should have saved it from years ago. But we've all seen it where it's all like what people think practicing magic is to what actually magic is. It's like it's like, yes, I get the pomp and circumstances of altars and ritual, but a lot of it is with your fucking Kaivan and I are here. Thank God we're like so enmeshed, because it's like we're reading all day and taking notes and studying as we also have to live our lives and do these things. And so it's such a fascinating thing of like, if you're not learning the language of the ancients all the way through time, if you don't understand these things in and out by the basics, the frameworks of what the symbols and the signs and these things mean, so you can understand them as they're coming at you at all times. And it goes back to why I'm even here with Magus in the media, is that these things are now being spread to you through our fucking devices, these smartphones, the screens in front of us. It's like it's in all of our movies. We get Doctor Strange. It's the most beautiful understanding of, like, obviously old comic books where they were doing chaos magic and learning those things in the 60s and 70s, and they created Doctor Strange, right, to be this sorcerer supreme. But in it, he's studying the ancient languages through time, and nothing is off limits. And so it goes to the idea of like, if you're, and it's not a material thing. He was a scientist who was a scientific materialist, and he was broken free from that because he started to understand the Platonic ideal, that the ideal realm is more real than this realm. That this, like that, and it's a simple switch for all you fucking idiots and morons out there. And I'm not talking to anybody who actually listens to Magus in the media, because you all understand how important the idea is and where consciousness comes from. It's not material and materiality and then consciousness springs from that. It's that consciousness is and always was the supreme all thing. And then from that, it created too, thus the stories of I looking outside of myself, and finally I see my own reflection, and thus the whole world came into being from this immaculate metaphorical structure of the myth of the cosmogenic cycle and how we exist today. And so it's such, and we're getting it at all times. And so that's why it can seem so chaotic in the world, is because we are getting the occulted universe put into our face, and with characters like the great Donald, the theatrical chaos magician himself out there, who is treating all things like it's WrestleMania. That we must.
Well, it is WrestleMania. That's what politics has always been.
Yeah,
people are totally forgetting. It's just that people were so bought in the 90s.
You know? Thank you. I'm going to take that as a net positive. I appreciate you crushing nihilism. Thank you.
Well, I'll say this. He said a really good comment. I started with the rune gold, chaotic mess. The heathen golden dawn is much better, but meditation seems to more important than any silly rituals. See, this is where we differ. I agree with you that meditation is foundational, but I also think that there is use. I do think that there is use. And even though I'm like slagging paganism and like neo-pagan reconstruction, like I'm not telling anyone what to do. Like, if you want to go be a shaman in the wilderness, go be a shaman in the wilderness. My problem is that like you can't frame it in terms of historical trauma, because again, you sound brown if you do that. You do, because then what does it give? What does it give? It gives the justification for all of the grievance politics that we have all now lived through for like 10 years.
Yeah.
If white people are somehow ancestrally injured through their exposure to Christianity, then what is the difference between Black people saying that they're psychically injured through slavery?
No, I agree. And I am not yeah. And reparations are lame.
Well, that's the whole thing. You're giving justification for all these racial politics, your premise is wrong.
Yeah.
You have to accept that you might be psychically injured. I've been psychically injured.
Of course. I think we all have.
Exactly.
Yep.
So how do we move forward and rectify it? I choose not to be a Christian, not because I'm anti. I choose to not be a Christian because I found a practice that really works, that really forefronts meditation, but it also forefronts magic. So that's what I was trying to say about the rituals.
Yeah.
It is good to learn the rituals because
It
the
is.
whole point of learning rituals is to, as Brandon always says, they are to be taken into the mind palace to do ritual activities that might, I'm not saying that you're imagining yourself pouring I'm thinking of Tantra, but like pouring the water offering the sticks of incense. You can do all that externally. It takes like 10 minutes.
It takes no time. You should do that to set the space. You should do
set the space, set your tone, set your attention. Totally, I agree. And then what you can do in the mind palace is actually the important things, is actually start to reconcile and rectify the polarities as you are drawing from them, rather than be like, oh my God, my life's in chaos. Yeah, everybody's life's in chaos in a way. So how do we maneuver and sort of concretize the things that we want? How do we path work? That's the fundamental question. My thing is not that necessarily Buddhism is the best system for everyone, or Tantra, specifically Vajrayana, is like the system for everybody. I don't know. I do think Dharma is the best. I think Dharma is the truth. I think everyone should follow Dharma. Everybody's gonna have a different like practice of what that even looks like, or opinion of what that even is. That's totally fine. That's the inner outer secret. There's always going to be an outer temple, like Brandon's saying. You do need a catch-all. What is the catch-all in the Aeon of the Daughter? Well, I'm sorry to the pagan bros, I really am, but the catch-all religions for the Aeon of the Daughter are not going to, but maybe the pagan bros will be happy about this. It's not going to be RC, Roman Catholicism. It's not going to be Christianity. No. It's actually going to be the dying weird God.
That's Osiris. It's right. The old Aeon. Yeah,
that's right. So it is going to be the weird American religions, New Age, ghost, like supernaturalism, ghost hunting. That's a religious inclination. It'll be botanica stuff, like going to the botanica culture, buying botanica supplies off Etsy, buying spell work off. I mean, that's what it is. It seems to be the case. It'll be these small works of magic that are supplemental to religion. They're not really meant to exist on their own, but increasingly those things will exist outside of religion, outside of a whole religious frame. And yeah, you will have people who are interested in like more left-hand path stuff, in the Niner materials, and Palo Mayombe, and like a lot of ritual magicians, like Western ritual magicians, go get Kimbanda initiations, go get Vajrayana initiations, go get Bon Po initiations, do this and that. But you know what will bear the most fruit? In my opinion, what bears the most fruit is the one marga that you are sincere about, because it's about the holistic nature of reality, which is Dharma. That's just my opinion. People can do what they want, but I just think that this idea of like pagan, like creating these like new neo-pagan institutions or these mystery cult traditions, of course. But do you know what's going to happen if you create, so someone creates like a Mithraic cult? Well, Mithraic cult already exists. It's called Roman Catholicism. Okay. Like, hello, welcome to 2025. Welcome to the new world. Mithras never died. It exists in multiple different religions, but it's nowhere more found than in Christianity. However, when you make these kind of Mithraic cults, whether you consider them right-hand path or left-hand path, you must understand that you are creating transgressive cults by practicing them. That was the whole thing. If you look at historically in the Himalayas, every time you've had like these quote unquote Aeon of the Daughter interstitial periods where all the institutions break apart, and you sort of have like everybody goes back to that quote unquote primordial Zoroastrianism, you have the creation of both these like far shamanic, like, oh, we're like the good guys, we're like the good mages, we're like the white hat shamans, and we're going to do battle against those black hat shamans, the evil ones that are doing like demonic practices.
It's the tribalism, bro, that I can't handle. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Correct. But you will create both. That's the problem, is that you will dialectically create all these
That's
things.
exactly it.
And we already
Yep.
live in an aeon of decoherence. So
Yep.
perhaps the primordial ground is the place that happens in your own mind. That is just my opinion. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I really am not.
I am.
Well, I'm giving a framework that I do believe, that I personally also believe, that I think that makes a lot more sense, because I think you will see a lot more Mormons. I think you will see a lot more Scientologists, and I don't necessarily think that's positive. I'm not against those things.
I don't think it is positive, because they're all cults. What's fascinating is they're
very
esoteric
weird
cults. They're esoteric cults.
Yes,
Mormonism
it's
was magic.
American magic,
Yeah, Scientology was created because they used the frameworks of the Golden Dawn, and Mormonism was created because of the frameworks of Freemasonry and Christianity. And so it's a fascinating thing to understand. And what?
Martinism.
And Martinism. Thank you. I always forget about that one.
That's okay.
It's like the small little. But the thing
I
is,
hate Martinists because I was raised Roman Catholic, so I'm like,
nice.
I'm like a big snob like that. I'm like, because people don't, I mean, especially Americans, they don't understand. There is like a real antagonism, especially like if you grow up in a majority Catholic country, there does seem to be there.
I like that.
The new Catholic universalism will be the Phoenix, the daughter. We talked about this last week.
Yeah, we did.
Jean Grey, the Phoenix, the
Exactly.
daughter. Yep, she's coming from Gevra. There you go. There's the Aeon. You're welcome.
You're welcome. That's great. No, I like that. And I like that because it's a transitionary period, and it's an expression of the Promethean fire that John Milton was trying to get at in his Paradise Lost. And how Peter Gray talks about it is he's talking about it in a way, and he lays it out there so brilliantly on how our history and the time frame really matters to understand that Lucifer wasn't rising up. In his view, Lucifer wasn't the good guy, and he was rebelling against the God who was the tyrant, because in that time frame the king had died. And so that king dying, and everyone has to try to understand their position in it. And so what was going on is that Lucifer became idealized, because people were like, oh great, we had a tyrant king and now he's dead. And do you see how Lucifer in this poem, this beautiful classical poem that Milton wrote, is now also rising up against a tyrant god of Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever you want to call that Christian Old Testament style God that they were rising up against. So I think it's really important. And then to also go back to the other thing I wanted to say is that how important it is for the syncretized understanding of what ritual is, and it doesn't have to be so stagnant, is that you can be a romantic poet like these characters were, and they picked up old classical texts like Paradise Lost, like Homer, like any of them, and then go to the East and pick up all their stuff, reading the Lotus Sutra, reading Bushido, the Code of Bushido, anything that the Tao, the I Ching being one of the biggest ones. Take a line out of it and then memorize it. And in memorizing it, give it credence and act from a place of that primordial fire and that person that's within you that wants to really invoke often and inflaming yourself in prayer of this single line. And Alkiste or Peter Gray, one of the two, said a word that actually is of that practice. And I was like, shit, I need to remember that. I never do. But just know that if you're a fellow bibliophile like myself, and most likely Jin is as well, you pick up a book and just read that line and try to understand it, add it in and integrate it into your life, because magic isn't meant to be just on a pillow, right? Or in your chamber room. Magic is for everyone. And the astral temple, I truly believe, is one of the most important places that you have, because in this ocean of chaos, in the crazy geopolitical spheres, in social media, in our faces at all times, you need your own quiet space. Yes. And you need to protect yourself in that quiet space. And even a lot of, our more formal ceremonial magicians in these institutions, I know they've fought me on this before, and so have others, but Rigardi himself talks about it in the Middle Pillar book, and in his Tree of Life book, he talks about how important it is to know that you may be doing the pentagram ritual and the hexagram rituals and all these different things of that Western esoteric tradition, but knowing the only technical reason you're doing it for is as a mnemonic device. Not only, that's my own absolutism, but you're using it as a mnemonic device to build the temple of the mind, because that is the one place that you and God coexist together. It's the same way as when you say the Lord's Prayer, you aren't doing it for anybody else. You should be remembering that you're doing it in the darkness space. I don't mean darkness bad, but darkness of your own heart, and the place that is that small center in you that no one else can reach. That is where you find Gnosis, and that is where you find God.
Well, that was kind of mic drop, Brandon. Good job on that. There you go. I do want to respond quickly, and then we can, I know I kept you forever and ever. Initiations are like Pokemon. Got to get them all. Okay.
I hate that so I will state that.
I also hate this personally. It's not because I hate the person. I actually like Crush Nihilism.
Yeah, Crush Nihilism. Thank you. Shout out to you all stream. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you're great.
I'm not mad at you. What I'm going to say is very practical, very actionable advice, which I often get told that I don't give. Okay, so if you collect the Pokemon, so you're playing Pokemon Platinum, you're collecting all the Pokemon. Do you fight with all the Pokemon? Do you go to the gym with all your Pokemon leveled up? No. You're going to go to the best Pokemon that you have, the rarest, the team that you like. Maybe you like all ghost type. Okay. You can put together like a hybrid ghost grass or whatever, and go, if you can beat all the gyms with that, then that's what you're going to do. But you're going to get all those Pokemon to the highest level. It doesn't matter if you collect it. Doesn't mean anything. I've had my head washed. It's called Lavtet in Voodoo. It's not for initiation. It's to read the Loi Met Tet, meaning the spirit, the guardian spirit of your head. I was curious. I was in Montreal, and I was like, I want to get this done. And so they did a cowrie shell reading, and they were like, okay, we'll do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I was like 20 years old, maybe 19. And I did it. And so did it change my life? No. Do I work with those spirits? No. Didn't fundamentally do anything for me, except that I fulfilled a curiosity I had. But the reality is like, it didn't open the Marga for me to go be to practice voodoo, to go be a Hogan. Although a lot of Western magicians tend to think in those terms. Like, I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to find out my Loi Met Tet, and it will resolve all these polarities, all these problems that I have for myself. But the reality is again, the best practice is one that you're actually going to do. And the best practices start with meditation. So I'm not even doing a sell for Vajrayana or Dharma. There are many practices that involve meditation. There are many magical practices that involve meditation. So what I'm saying is maybe that is the more fundamental thing. And this is a realization I came to with doing my own show. It wasn't something that I started off thinking. Mm-hmm. I just started hearing how many people, David Rankin, I always cite David Rankin. He meditates every single day. He does not have time. He had 2 young kids. He does not have time to do ritual or high magic. Every important ceremonial magician from the 90s no longer does ceremonial magic. Right. They foundationally sit in meditation. Many of those people are Buddhist. Does that mean that you have to go be Buddhist? No. It just means that there is something in that, in the framework of sitting and knowing your own mind, that will actually help you with magic, maybe even a more concrete way than the ritual formulation itself. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, meditate, number 1, and then number 2, you don't need every initiation. Maybe you do. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe you have no initiation. Maybe you're really hungry for one. But the reality is your karma is going to bear out what is going to bear fruit for you, like the pomegranate, planting the orchard of pomegranates. So it's not going to be every single seed. So do you want to get every single seed? No. Because why? You're creating karmic connections to things that you're going to have to fulfill in the next life. And that's what a lot of paganism, I'm really not shitting on paganism at all. I am fine with people practicing an outer density religion. Yes. You go to Asia, ghost worship is very prominent. I personally don't worship ghosts. You go to Asia, they worship these very ferocious excuse me, goddesses and these star gods in the Taoist temples and these lower spirits in the Taoist temples. Excuse me, ghost gods, all of these things. I don't worship those things. So for me, why would I worship them? Because you're creating karmic connections to them.
Yeah.
Meaning that you might come back in another life, which we're all coming back. And are you going to have to like become a priest of that religion? Maybe. So I would just really watch it. I'd be really, I'm not saying that it's necessarily true for everyone, and a lot of people don't believe in karma, and especially in the way that I talk about it. But I try and
it
be
believes in you. It believes in you.
That's right. Anyways, I'm sorry, Brandon. And thank you so much for hosting this incredible conversation and letting me be pretty much 100%, 110% myself, and also allowing me the space to like just be very free range that I don't get to do often because it's a Grey Lodge only. I try and keep Jinn on Threshold Saints and on Rejects pretty contained. Yeah, little adversarial, but pretty contained. So I try and bring the Grey Lodge Jinn, that like secret third thing, because I joked that I have both a little brother nature and a big brother nature, which is true. But there's also the third secret thing, which is the baddie Jinn. So he comes out a little on this show.
Because we're fucking ninjas and Ronin, and that's what we do, and that's what happens when Kung Fu brothers come together. We start fucking Kung Fu.
I was gonna rap. I was gonna rap the Samurai Champloo song. I was gonna actually test you to see if you remembered the lyrics, because I gave you shit about that last week. But I was gonna open. I was literally gonna open with Battle Cry. Because I know I could like easily recite the lyrics, like no problem.
Nice. Okay. Well, then we're gonna have you do the introduction next week, because I want to hear battle rap Jinn. Give me the battle cry, and we'll put the background on there so we can.
I used to do slam poetry.
Jinn. I did too, bro. It's like you're me over there. That's crazy. Yeah. I have a lot of spoken word slam poem. I used to do it when I was
even a video on YouTube. I'm not saying from where, I'm not ever linking it. Nobody will ever find it. But there is a video on YouTube. I just saw it the other day of me doing slam. So it was good. I was fucking good, I will say. I blew everyone out of the water. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah, me too. They'd have the jazz band in the back, and then I would give I did a lot of. Yeah, it doesn't matter what I did. Yeah, that's for next time. Jinn, as we wrap this up, before I give my foretold outro, tell them where they can find you and all the things that you've been doing and are doing now in the future.
Okay. Check me out at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn on Twitter, or at Threshold Saints, which is Twitter and IG, or at thresholdsaints.substack.com, which is my favorite landing platform for the show, simply because it has increased my viewership by manifold amounts. Like, it really, sincerely, having the Substack has given like, my show was always okay. Like, I was always like, okay, even if it was like 300-400 people, okay. But like Substack has given it a brand new life, increased my viewership by like not viewership, but audio listenership by like 1,000 people pretty much per episode, although that's not necessarily averaged for every single episode. But the ones that are listened to, those, I mean, it has immensely, what does Jinn think of Gordon White? Jinn interviewed Gordon White on Occult Rejects. Gordon White hates Buddhism. So Jinn does not like when other magicians who think of themselves as shamans disrespect Buddhism. And I definitely took it very personally. And I also had a beef with Gordon White because of the Tracy Twyman series that I did. Mm-hmm. So I'm not anti Gordon White, but I'm not also like into selling shamanic services. I'm also not into practicing Kimbanda. And I'm also like not trying to, but okay, well, I'll say one positive since Brandon's going to have him on. I'm going to say a really positive thing. Gordon White is correct in the idea of the re-magicalization of, he calls it the world because obviously he's like a, Australian, a convict. But I don't really like them. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. Anyways,
he's talking about Australians, not Gordon White as a concept.
Yes. Australians. Okay. But the remagicalization, I just prefer to localize it and say we're talking about the remagicalization of the Americas. That's really what I'm talking about. That's why I'm more anti to paganism, because I think it's more about magic, and I think it's also more about ritual technologies used to understand the spirits of the land that we live on, whether those technologies are Native American or Tibetan or Mayan or whatever they are, or like curanderismo or syncretic or ATR or Afrosyncretic or hoodoo or some other thing, some other secret third thing. So I like that, and I also like geo-regional animism. I think, like Brandon even talked about this, America is made up of so many biomes, so many different kinds of lands. There's deserts, there's forests, there's rainforests, there's temperate rainforests, there's mountains, there's oceans, there's lakes, there's caves. So I think that this is a really interesting idea. I take a lot out of it. I don't call it the same thing. I call it geo-ontological relations, which I take from Indigenous feminist studies or feminist Indigenous studies, which I know is a leftist, which I know is like very leftist, but I think I can actually make it really interesting. And it's also very Mithraic. So we seek to be in right relations with the relatives that are non-human, meaning like the waters, the rivers, the land, the
Isn't that
mountains.
John Lamb Lash, that Gaia Sophia hypothesis?
I mean, yes, it is in a way. It's related, right? Like there's an interrelationship, and I'm not saying it doesn't. Okay, so I'm not saying it does not exist in the other things.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like there is a contemporary indigenous framework to sort of understand and describe.
For sure.
So anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to tangent that. But yeah, Gordon White, cool. You know, it's like with everything. I take some things that I like and I leave the bullshit that I think is bullshit. That's for me. You have to decide for yourself. So I think if you want to listen to my show, that's what you're going to get from me. Is that you're going to get someone who is also going through their own process of deciding what I want to believe, and also like working through ideas. And I'm also not scared anymore to change my mind.
That's the biggest one. That's the biggest one. You can't be. New information comes in, you got to put it against all the testing fields, and you got to let stuff go that seems like it's bullshit or doesn't work. Keep what, as Bruce Lee says, take what is useful, leave what is useless, and make what's there essentially your own. I think that is one of the most important things that could ever happen.
You're turning into a true chaos, Brandon. Talking about anime as a hermeneutic, there's nothing more chaotic than that. That's very chaos magic. It really is.
It is. I mean, I was deeply integrated with The Invisibles by Grant Morrison on high dosages of entheogens. I almost cannot not be, you know what I mean? Which is then why it's like, I want to make sure we have a good framework to work with in the chaos. I think that's what it is. And when I don't see that, it's logical inconsistencies royally upset me, which is then it goes back to why the occulted YouTube is such a fascinating thing, because without the base framework for understanding and philosophical discussion and discourse of trying to have an actual conversation, you first have to check yourself before you wreck yourself, so to speak. So
we should be victorious over all false giants.
Boom. Oof, that's beautiful. Thank you, Jin. Is that the shout out? You got all the things? You just came out with something today, right? You came out with something today.
Oh yes, I did. I did drop an episode with Joshua the Branch, Seth. We did. It's called High Guardian Angel. We go heavy into the Kabbalah and Gnostic themes that are found in Dark Souls and Elden Ring, which is part 1 of 2. There will be a second part, which also deals with the same topic, Dark Souls and Elden Ring. It's a really interesting series because we talk about a lot of the things that you and I discussed tonight. Aeon of the Sun, but we discussed it from the Gnostic Seth perspective, and looking at this wayward or magician sun perspective, this left-hand path sun, and how he rectifies himself through the Aeon of the Daughter, of course, and how, but if he doesn't, then he perpetuates the cycle. He himself becomes the demiurge. So that is the actual theme of Dark Souls. So I think it's a great episode. I'm really happy with it. And I'll, of course, subscribe to Magus in the Media on IG, on X, on YouTube and listen to Brandon and all his episodes, but especially show love and give me the numbers on Monday night so I get invited back every time. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Love that.
Thank
I
you so
love
much. And
that.
thank you, Brandon. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course.
But for real, subscribe to Brandon, support his project. I know I do. He's a valued member. And yeah, but especially Mondays. I just want to say that. Like whenever I'm on, if you see I'm on, you have to come like give us the boost, give us some numbers.
Yes, please. All the numbers tonight was good across all things. We're at 127 listeners at this moment, so I appreciate everybody tonight across all platforms. Fascinating, Jin. If every time I love talking with you, it's like we boom into the all and we become scientists on this very mercurial together in this kung fu brotherhood that we're creating.
Yeah, we're Hode Rising.
We're
no homo.
Yeah. Exactly. Double that. We have our own skywives, so it's very. I just want to say it's a very fascinating thing what these astral digital spheres can be. They can be moments of dread and fear and propaganda, or through these things you can understand that you may find bits of knowledge, of information, friendship, and conversation that can help us dissect and then bring back together, because I think that's one of those things that we forget in this alchemical process as magicians and seekers and people who are trying to find truth in this world, is we forget about the recombination of the alchemical process. We all go through the dark night of the soul, and you can choose to not be a victim any longer. Take up the sword, the wand, drink from the cup, and stand upon that disc, and you have the ability to not be a victim anymore. You have the ability to not be an NPC, and you no longer need to be a smith. What you can be is somebody with agency, somebody who understands that there are symbols and propaganda and narrations and metaphors and mythologies that are constantly streaming at you. And we can figure out that we can have our own Tai Chi. We can have our own Kung Fu practice, our own embodied practice, meditation and magic together to be able to surf the waves of the digital astral synthosphere, right? This simulation that we're all watching. And again, myself, I'm not a simulation theorist because it's an organic process unfolding. This is as real as it gets, even though it's a mimesis. It's a representation of the real. So unless you have the ability to merge contradictions into the complementary, you'll be confused, and you don't have to be confused any longer. And that's what Magus and the Media is here, as well as Threshold Saints and the Grey Lodge of Jinn. That's what all of these places that you can actually parse through and hear bits of truth, see the truth, and feel it within your own nervous system. And so if you haven't already, go back, listen to my Dr. David Shoemaker. That's my last interview I just did. David Shoemaker is brilliant, and he's somebody that can be a true mentor to magicians in the world. And it doesn't mean you have to take on Philema and the AA and the Golden Dawn and Masonry and these things that he's doing, but you can see that there is something to these practices. And if you have the ability to look at them through a certain lens, you can become a gentleman. You can become whatever the opposite is that for the ladies, you can become your own fully actualized somebody with agency. So I just think it's just go back and listen to that, because there's a way that Dr. David Shoemaker speaks, very soft and kind. And also he's expanding on things that are so deep and so complicated. But the idea is to be able to explain them in a way like you're talking to a first grader. And that's not a diss on anybody out there in the world, but if you can't explain it to somebody so they can understand it, do you truly understand it yourself? I don't think so. But these are questions to truly ask. Lady is the opposite of gentleman. That's what I was going to say, but it seemed a little cliche. Anyway, my next interview that's coming out over the next few days is Sarah Janes of the Dream Mysteries. We had a brilliant discussion as well on dreaming, the mystery schools, magic, the everyday world of media with the art of dreaming and these things. And so make sure you listen to that. I am also going to be, interviewing Gordon White. That's going to be great. We're going to talk about all the things that I've ever wanted to ask him, because I've been listening to him for a long time. Peter Gray, Alkesis are coming on. David Beth, who is the publisher, one of the owners of Theon Publishing, just came out with a book, and it's amazing. And he's going to be coming on at the beginning of May, as well as many, 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 many projects. The Jin and Brandon Lee radio show will continue next week, Monday evening. And if it switches, we'll post it on all the things. I just want to state I'm having such a great time with you, Jin, and there is something to learn from all the rabble that we have. Just realize YouTube is a large venue and there's so much nonsense, but so much brilliance. The esoteric, is it mainstreaming? Yeah, it is, because we are within. What are we within, Jin? What Aeon are we here to move through?
Aeon of the motherfucking daughter.
That's
and
what
I
I'm
also
saying.
Exactly. And I also want to say, I don't know if I should even say it in Thai, but I could, is that it is Songkran. So happy Songkran, Wan Songkran Krap. Happy Songkran to everybody, which is Thai New Year, which is actually Vedic New Year. So it's so funny because everybody loves to play Vedic Aryan Kang on Twitter, but they never actually know the actual Vedic holidays that are still practiced in Southeast Asia. So yes, today is Kamai or Thai New Year, and it is the traditional Vedic New Year. And it's kind of a liminal space, and so that's kind of what the internet is. That's what you have to think of it as. Like Brandon is saying, YouTube is a liminal space, and you have to. And as a magician, if we're Hode-like or mercurial, we actually like to exist in these liminal spaces, because that actually can increase our potency and our relationship to higher knowledge.
It does. That's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant. So we're going to leave it at that. I hope everyone has a fantastic evening. Go subscribe, like, and share Magus in the Media, Threshold Saints across all platforms, because without the community and without us trying to understand what's going on in the world and merging it with wisdom, we'll never make it to Kether and beyond. And so for everyone else, I hope you have a wonderful evening. And check out the show I have with Ethan Indigo on Wednesday if you want to learn about the Tao, Tai Chi, and philosophy in action. We're going to go deep. We're both practitioners, and we've done it for a long time. And again, thank you, Jin, so much, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.